Chapter 402. After inspecting the 3 newly formed divisions, Ouyang Shuo was on his way back. At this point, the military and political affairs of Liezhou County had been smoothed out, and Ouyang Shuo no longer needed to personally oversee it. The next day, Ouyang Shuo left Thunder Mountain City and returned to Shanghai City on a warship from the Black Soil Port. The Black Soil Port was the port where the Imperial Guard Division first landed. Compared to a month ago, this place had become a huge construction site, and it was very lively. In the future, this place would be built into a large port that would connect the North Sea Port and the 2 counties. The sea route between the North Sea Port and the Black Soil Port was also an important passage for the Lian Prefecture to control Liezhou County. Although Liezhou County was isolated from the territory, with this sea route, it was very convenient to travel between the 2 places. Even if it was an ordinary merchant ship, it would only take 4 days to arrive. At the same time, Heian City and Yanluo City would each build a port. Heian City's port was mainly used to connect Liezhou County and the future Cheongzhou County. Yanluo City's port was connected to Jiaozhou County and even the royal city of Quanzhou. With the establishment of Liezhou County, the construction of the sea trade route in Shanghai Territory was entering a period of rapid development. Due to the geographical characteristics of Lianzhou County, the sea trade would also be the most important communication window for Shanghai City. On the 9th of July, Ouyang Shuo returned to Shanghai City. Along with him were the Imperial Guard Division and the 4 division chief. With the complete structure of Liezhou County, the 4 division chiefs naturally had to retire. After leaving Shanghai City for a month, the backlog of government affairs in the Marquis' mansion was enough to give them a headache. After returning to Shanghai City, Ouyang Shuo began to carry out a major reform of the territory's structure. What followed was naturally a series of personnel appointments and removals. With the establishment of Liezhou County, and the foreseeable Cheongzhou County and Zhaoqing County, Ouyang Shuo believed that the time was ripe to upgrade the Lian Prefecture Marquis' mansion. The first one was to formally establish the Lian Prefecture Yamen and separate it from the Lian Prefecture Marquis' mansion. Wei Ran did not disappoint and was appointed as the governor of Lianzhou County by Ouyang Shuo. The county seat of Lianzhou County was chosen in Blessed City, which was still under construction. As the future capital, Shanghai City was officially separated from Lianzhou County and became an independent administrative division, occupying a special position in the territory. There were 2 reasons as to why Lianzhou County was located in Blessed City. Firstly, Blessed City was located at the center of Lianzhou County and radiated in all directions. Secondly, he could use the status of the prefectural office to promote the development of Blessed City. Wei Ran's decision to move to the right and leave Shanghai City would not only help to eliminate the rumors about him and Bai Qi, but it would also be good news for the development of Lianzhou County. After the official establishment of Lianzhou County, the Lianzhou County Garrison Division would also be established to be responsible for the daily defense of Lianzhou County. As for the current City Guard Division, they were only responsible for the defense of Shanghai City. The establishment of the Lianzhou County Garrison Division was equivalent to the complete liberation of the Dragon Xiang Legion. The 1st Division of the Dragongxiang Legion, which was originally in charge of the defense of Lianzhou County, would be stationed in the Mulan Fortress after the handover. The soldiers of the Garrison Division, Ouyang Shuo, aimed at the future prisoners of war in Zhaoqing County. Therefore, the Lianzhou County Garrison Division would only be officially established after Zhaoqing County was conquered. Ouyang Shuo chose Hu Yibiao as the commander of the Garrison Division. Hu Yibiao was previously the commander of the 4th Brigade of the Dragongxiang Legion's 3rd Division. Like Zhao Yan, he was also a fierce general on the battlefield, and he was a veteran trained by Shanghai City. Although this group of veteran generals could not be qualified to be the commander of a field army, they were qualified to be the commander of the garrison division. This was also Ouyang Shua's last care for this group of veteran generals. After Shanghai City became independent, the chief executive officer was specially appointed as the Shanghai commander. For the first Shanghai commander, Ouyang Shua chose the newly appointed magistrate of Duanren Prefecture, Zhang Wenzhong. Zhang Wenzhong's open-minded way of governing and his identity as an outsider were the main reasons why he stood out. The Gushan County magistrate, Lei Fan, replaced Zhang Wenzhong and moved to the right as the magistrate of Duanren Prefecture. Lei Fan had always been an official that Ouyang Shua thought highly of. In the Battle of Lianzhou, he even displayed outstanding talent. Using this opportunity, Ouyang Shua naturally wanted to promote him. At the same time, Ouyang Shua officially appointed Tian Wenjing as the county guard of Cheongzhou County. At this point, the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion officially ruled over 3 counties. In the future, there would be more counties under the jurisdiction of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion. As for whether there would be a structure for the counties and above, it would probably take a few years before there would be a conclusion. At present, the biggest problem was that the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion's rule over the territories was somewhat illegitimate. According to the setting of the game, the territory of the Lianzhou Marquis Mansion should be limited to 50,000 square kilometers. However, the actual territory ruled by the Shanghai territory was 15 to 16 times the limited area. In his previous life, Di Chun and the others also encountered the same problem. The only solution was to ask the imperial court for an official position, such as a military governor, or protector general. Then, in the name of the military governor, or protector general, they could exercise jurisdiction over the territories that they actually occupied. There was no doubt that Ouyang Shua needed such an official position. Of course, such an important official position was not free. One of the conditions was to pay tribute to the imperial court every year, which was also known as the annual tribute. Not only that, without a certain degree of reputation, even if the lord wanted to pay tribute, the imperial court might not accept it. The imperial court that Ouyang Shua chose was naturally the imperial court of Great Li. After all, his title of Marquis of Lianzhou was conferred by the imperial court of Great Li. After making his decision, Ouyang Shua chose an envoy to go to Great Li on his behalf to meet the current emperor, explain the reason, and ask for an official position. According to Ouyang Shua, the ideal official position was the Southern Border Protectorate, and then he would establish the Southern Border Protectorate. One had to admit that his appetite was too big. Governor referred to everything, protector referred to the guardianship of the troops, and protector referred to the chief guardian. It was the highest official in a region. The Southern Border Protectorate was the chief guardian of the southern region. The southern border, the territory it encompassed, was unimaginably vast. Ouyang Shua's intention was to settle everything in one go. Before the official establishment of the country, he would use the structure of the Southern Border Protectorate to avoid frequent changes and chaos in government affairs. In his previous life, Di Chun and the others all sought the position of military governor of a region, such as the Xianhua military governor, the Jing military governor, and so on. They would first establish the military governor's office, and then slowly get promoted. They were not like Ouyang Shua, who wanted to reach the sky in a single step. The imperial court of Great Li probably did not have the authority to confer such a position. It had to be approved by the imperial court of Chuanzhou, which was also located in the south. This was even more difficult. Fortunately, Shanghai City still had some relations with the imperial court of Chuanzhou. Especially with the help of Ma Zhu, the relationship between the two cities became closer. Even the plaque of Ma Zhu Temple was bestowed by the imperial court of Chuanzhou. This was also the source of Ouyang Shua's confidence. If not for these favorable factors, Ouyang Shua would not have such wishful thinking. The next step was to decide on the candidate for the envoy. It was different from the power struggle in the spring and autumn warring states period. The competition between lords in the wilderness was either one or the other, and the ultimate goal was to destroy the other party. Therefore, the role of a diplomatic envoy in the territory was not as important as it was in history. Shanghai City didn't even have a professional envoy, much less a specialized department. Thinking of this, Ouyang Shuo felt a headache coming on. Helpless, he could only seek the opinions of the four chiefs. Who do you think is suitable to be the envoy? The four chiefs looked at each other and did not know how to answer for a moment. Needless to say, the finance chief Cui Yingyu, as a woman, was fine in the territory. With Ouyang Shuo's protection, no one dared to say anything. But if she were to go to the imperial court, she probably would not even be able to see the emperor. Administrative chief Fan Zhongyan? No. Fan Zhongyan was upright and outspoken. If it was an equivalent envoy, he would naturally be a suitable candidate to show the dignity of the territory. But this trip was for private activities and to seek an official position. This kind of shady business, Fan Zhongyan naturally could not do. The remaining two were Du Ruhui and Wei Yang. With no other choice, Ouyang Shuo directly decided to send Du Ruhui and Cui Yingyu to Dali. Du Ruhui, as the main envoy, was mainly responsible for meeting the emperor, explaining the reason, and coordinating the relations. Cui Yingyu, as the deputy envoy, used the Cui family's influence in Dali to move around. Wei Yang and Jing Jian were sent to Quanzhou. Ouyang Shuo knew that Jing Jian had been an envoy in Qin before and had a certain amount of experience. After choosing the envoy, the next step was to prepare the list of gifts. Apart from preparing the gifts for the ministers, the most important thing was to draw up the annual tribute. In order to obtain the position of Southern Border Protector General, Ouyang Shuo had put in a lot of effort this time. He had personally decided that Shanghai City would each offer 20,000 gold coins, 10,000 bolts of colorful silk, 50 caddies of white tea, 100 strings of pearls, and 2,000 jars of three-flower wine to Dali and Quanzhou. The total value of the tribute was more than 100,000 gold coins. Ouyang Shuo knew that only these special products of the territory could move the heart of the current emperor. It was better not to take out ordinary goods to embarrass himself. Among the lords of the world, only Ouyang Shuo could take out such a large sum. As soon as he said this, the four chiefs all sucked in a breath of cold air. Fortunately, the four of them were not ordinary people and had foresight. When Ouyang Shuo proposed the idea of establishing the Southern Border Protectorate, the four of them immediately understood the significance of this to the territory. It could be said that if it really succeeded, it would be a landmark for the development of the Shanghai territory. It would not be inferior to occupying Liezhou County. Du Ruhui and Wei Yang both stepped forward and bowed. They said solemnly, "Please rest assured, Marquis. This humble subject will not disappoint Marquis." Indeed, with such a large annual tribute as a foundation, the chances of success were very high. It was precisely because of this that the two of them were so confident. Ouyang Shuo nodded and did not say anything. The next day, the two envoy groups set off with gifts and gift lists. To be continued. Chapter 403. While Ouyang Shuo was planning for the position of Protector General, the war in the southeast had entered a critical period. On the second day of the 7th month, the War Wolf Army formed an alliance of 120,000 soldiers from more than 20 territories in the Jianya district. They crossed the border of Huanan province and headed straight for Huang Chao's stronghold, Fengyang City. The mysterious middle-aged general of the Red Blood County finally came out of seclusion and became the commander of the alliance. Under his command, the alliance suddenly appeared in front of Fengyang City on the morning of the 8th day of the 7th month. The Huang Chao rebel army was caught unprepared. Learning from the previous lesson of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, Huang Chao did not attack in all directions. Of the 110,000 soldiers, he only sent 60,000 soldiers to the south. The remaining 50,000 soldiers were all stationed in Fengyang City. Compared to Hong Xiuquan and Zhang Jiao, who had risen from sects, rebel leaders like Huang Chao and Chen Xing were a notch weaker in terms of instigating the refugees. The difference in the number of troops of the four rebel armies was vividly reflected. The Yellow Turban Rebellion that had been destroyed once reached 150,000 soldiers. After the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom occupied Zhenan County and Guilin County, their total troops did not decrease but increased to a terrifying 180,000. The rebel armies of Chen Xing and Wu Guang only had 120,000. And Huang Chao was even worse. He only had a pitiful 110,000 soldiers. Even so, for the Jianye alliance to attempt to use 120,000 soldiers to attack a sturdy city guarded by 50,000 soldiers was quite unbearable. Everyone couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. No one thought that the alliance could successfully take down Fengyang City. It should be known that Huang Chao was a complete lunatic. In history, when the rations were cut off, Huang Chao brazenly carried out large-scale and organized cannibalism in the city, using human flesh as food. Such behavior was simply unheard of, and it was unprecedented in the history of the world. In the first 3 days of the war, the alliance launched a series of fierce attacks, but the results were minimal. Fengyang City was still unmoved. Just when everyone thought that the Allied forces were going to suffer a crushing defeat, a turning point suddenly appeared. The one who broke the balance of the war was the Red Blood Army that the War Wolf Army had secretly trained. Red Blood Army currently only had 1 division, and the soldiers were all retired military officers. They were all equipped with the same armor, and they were disciplined and fought in an orderly manner. The fierce attacks in the past 3 days were just a smokescreen. The goal was to confuse Huang Chao's army and make them lower their guard. On the morning of the 4th day, the Red Blood Army, that had been hidden all this time, finally moved out. After 3 days of probing, the general had thoroughly grasped the patterns of Fengyang City's defenses. He had found the weakest point of the city's defenses. The Red Blood Army was attacking the most fatal point. The vast army quickly approached the city walls in an orderly formation, braving the rain of arrows. The 3 days of attacks were not in vain. At the very least, the moat outside the city had been completely filled up. The army moved as if they were walking on flat ground. Paying a minimal price, they soon arrived at the foot of the city wall. At the foot of the city wall, what the soldiers of the Red Blood Army did next shocked everyone. The soldiers at the frontmost row after row tossed out the stones that had been cut neatly from their storage pouches according to the routine they had rehearsed in advance. Soon, huge slabs of stone were laid out on the ground at the foot of the city wall with a rumbling sound. Then, the soldiers of the 1st Battalion retreated and were replaced by the soldiers of the 2nd Battalion. Then, they piled the stones from their storage pouches to the 2nd layer. Just like that, the 3rd layer, the 4th layer, the 5th layer. In less than half an hour, the Red Blood Army braved the rain of arrows, and with steel-like discipline and a fearless spirit of sacrifice, they built a flight of stone stairs at the foot of the city wall. The entire flight of stairs extended from the bottom of the city wall to the top, like a stairway to heaven. The Huang Chao rebel army on the city wall was dumbfounded. With their pitiful knowledge, how could they understand such a dreamlike construction process? It was as magical as the magic of immortals. Even the Allies were dumbfounded. Just like that, the Red Blood Army used the storage pouches of the players to create a new siege strategy. 09 Small Say Net. As soon as it appeared, it stunned the world. Obviously, this strategy had been designed long ago to catch the enemy off guard. Others were shocked, but the Red Blood Army wasn't stunned. Groups of soldiers climbed up the stairs one by one, easily attacking the city wall. The following battle was easy to imagine. In a city defense battle, once one point was taken, it would lead to a complete collapse. As the Red Blood Army displayed their invincible might, the morale of the Allies soared. Taking down Fengyang City was right in front of them. After a hard battle in the morning, Fengyang City was officially taken. Huang Chao was indeed a famous vagabond. He was very experienced in escaping. As soon as the Red Blood Army attacked the city wall, he had already led a group of soldiers and abandoned the city. As long as the Southern Punitive Army was still there, Huang Chao would have a chance to rise again. Before he left, Huang Chao ordered his men to burn all the provisions in the city. Because it was a long journey, the Allies couldn't guarantee their rations. Seeing that Huang Chao had led his troops to escape, the Allies could only give up on the idea of chasing after him. After wreaking havoc in Fengyang City, they retreated with their troop. As for Fengyang City, it was sold to the Wannan Alliance. Although it wasn't a complete success, the Red Blood Army still became famous overnight in the China server. When the lords heard the news, they were enlightened. They couldn't believe that there was such a siege tactic. From the looks of it, adventure-type players were even more popular. Immediately, many lords became ambitious and prepared to establish a similar player army in their territory. Of course, it was almost impossible to be as fearless and disciplined as the Red Blood Army. Unfortunately, a system announcement completely shattered the lords' fantasies. System announcement. Due to the fact that the players used their storage bags or communication channels to play an extraordinary role in the war, severely affecting the balance of the war, the game will be updated with a temporary patch. System announcement. During the war, players are prohibited from using storage bags. Players are prohibited from using the guild channel, the alliance channel, and all other communication channels. Players are prohibited from logging into the forums. The moment the announcement came out, the players were in an uproar. The Red Blood Army and the Red Blood Army were truly famous. It was the only one in the world to make the powerful Gaia God update the game at the last minute. It had to be said, amazing, really amazing. Compared to the adventure-type players who were watching the show, the lords seemed to be a bit resentful. Once the patch was released, the Gaia God completely eliminated the players' advantage in the war. This kind of tactic disappeared as soon as it appeared. It was truly unprecedented and unrepeatable. It had to be said that it was a pity. This time, Gaia was really ruthless. Not only were the players prohibited from using storage bags and communication channels, but even the forums were blocked. In other words, in the future on the battlefield, the players were no different from the NPCs. The only difference was that after the players died, they could be reincarnated. Unfortunately, with the harsh death penalty, even if they reincarnated, it was no different from dying in a battle. When Ouyang Shua heard the system announcement, he had a complicated expression. When the Red Blood Army's tactic was announced to the public, Ouyang Shua had already expected such an ending. This series of actions was almost the same as in his previous life. No matter who thought of this tactic first, Gaia would release a patch in time to plug this loophole. Therefore, Ouyang Shua was not surprised at all. His rebirth had changed some things. At the same time, there were some things that were still stubbornly continuing on their original path. Even Ouyang Shua could not change this. Presumably, when Wolf Warrior had designed this tactic, he had already been prepared. That was why he decided to use this trump card in the most crucial battle. At the same time, Wolf Warrior also received generous rewards. With the achievement points from destroying the Huang Chao rebel army, Wolf Warrior finally surpassed Lord Chunshin and was the first to be promoted to a rank 3 marquis. The advancement of the Red Blood Army was right in front of them. At the same time, it meant that the fourth battle was about to start. Gaia's patch would definitely have a profound effect on future territorial battles. Any lord with the slightest bit of knowledge would be able to understand that this patch didn't just put an end to exaggerated tactic. Some details on the battlefield would also change. Just like before, Ouyang Shua, Di Chen and the others used storage bags to transport a small number of siege weapons. Even such a small trick would be banned. And the tactic that Ouyang Shua used in the Mu Yi battle would also become a masterpiece. Apart from this, there was also the impact of the channel ban on battlefield communications. In the Lianzhou battle, the Yan-Huang alliance used the alliance channel to achieve real-time communication across regions. Such a scene would no longer appear in future battles. The only way was to honestly establish a system of messengers. At this time, the hummingbird network established by Shanghai City was especially precious. In the future, similar communication networks would definitely be unearthed by the lords. After all, the creatures in the game were much more abundant and magical than in the real world. Other than hummingbirds, there could also be regular pigeons, insects, mice, and other magical creatures. Wasn't the blackbird in Chiyu City another living example? According to Gaia's logic, in future battles, there would be fewer and fewer ways for players to cheat. Just like the current mail system, at some point in the future, it might be banned by Gaia. Wars would become closer and closer to reality. Whether it was a lord or a general, there would also be more and more factors to consider. The simplest one, just a logistics guarantee, would be a headache for the army. In ancient times, logistics was the key to determining the success or failure of a war. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a lifeline. What followed would definitely be a series of adjustments. Whoever could adapt to the rules set by Gaia earlier would stand out. To be continued. Chapter 404. Xiangyang District, Danyang District. Upon learning that Warwolf had been promoted to a third-rank marquis, Lord Chuanshin's expression suddenly turned gloomy. The rise of the battle wolves meant that not only had Lord Chunshin lost to Dichen, but he was also in danger of losing his position in the Yan-Huang alliance. Unfortunately, Lord Chunshin was powerless. Danyang County was located in Jingzhou, which was located in the south of Jingshu Province. It was thousands of miles away from Luoyang District, where Chun Sheng and Wu Guang's rebel army were located. It was truly out of reach. Relying on the huge amount of funds raised from his family's merchant guild, Lord Chunshin endured hardships and trained a valiant elite army. He was even more fortunate to obtain the services of the famous general of the warring states, Tian Dan. Unfortunately, Warwolf was still one step ahead of him. The sullen Lord Chunshin once again smashed the things in the study to pieces. July 14th, Dali. 3 days had passed since Du Ruhui and Chui Inyu arrived in Dali. The two of them first went through the Chui family chamber of commerce to pull strings and build bridges to come into contact with the minister counselor, manager, and other 5th or 6th grade mid-level officials. Then, through them, they went through several twists and turns before finally forming a relationship with the important ministers in the court. Finally, he sent a message to the emperor through the important ministers in the court. Just like that, he spent a lot of money and stayed for another 2 days before he was summoned by the emperor of Dali. Imperial Palace, Throne Room. Du Ruhui, subordinate of Marquis Lian's mansion, greets your majesty. The emperor, who was sitting on the throne, was wearing a dragon robe. Strangely, the emperor's face was a blur. A hazy cloud of smoke covered the emperor's true face. "Why have you come to see me?" The emperor's voice was also faintly discernible and indistinguishable. "Your Majesty, this humble subject's lord is the Marquis of Lian Province. I deeply appreciate your Majesty's grace in conferring this title, and I would like to present a tribute to the court," Du Ruhui said as he handed over the prepared gift list to the eunuch. The eunuch took it and carefully handed it to the emperor. The emperor opened it and looked at it expressionlessly. After a long time, he said, "It's rare for Marquis Lian to have such filial piety. I will definitely reward you. Tell me, what reward do you want, Marquis of Lian Province?" "Your Majesty's reward is a sign of your grace. Your humble servant will not dare to disappoint you." Du Ruhui flattered him a little, then changed the topic and said, "This humble subject's lord has cut through the thorns in the wilderness and opened up the southern border. This is a place outside of civilization. In order to be enlightened and to honor your grace, I am willing to ask your Majesty to clear my lord's name." Marquis Lianzhou's appetite is quite big. What kind of person was the emperor? He immediately understood the meaning of Du Ruhui's words. Your humble servant does not dare to be greedy. I am only willing to help your majesty expand the territory and be a minister. Minister of the pastoral lands? The emperor's meaning was unclear. Du Ruhui didn't respond. At this time, silence was golden. After a long time, the Emperor of Dali casually glanced at the list again and said, I approve. Thank you, Your Majesty. Du Ruhui was overjoyed. She had not let down the Marquis's great trust. At the same time, Chuanzhou. Unlike Du Ruhui and Cui Yingyu, Wei Yang and Jing Jian's trip was much smoother. Not for anything else, but because they brought a special gift, which was a statue of Mazu that had received incense offerings from the Mazu temple. The people of Chuanzhou had been looking forward to this statue for a long time. Ouyang Shua's gift of the statue of Mazu was equivalent to blocking a large number of tourists for Shanghai City. What a heartache! The Chuanzhou Emperor personally attended the foundation-laying ceremony of the Chuanzhou Mazu Temple. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Wei Yang was successfully summoned by the Chuanzhou Emperor. The following answers were almost exactly the same. For the Emperor, conferring a Protector General was not a loss. After all, the wilderness was not their territory. Instead, they could receive such a generous annual tribute, so why not? Of course, Ouyang Shua's title of nobility also played a crucial role. He was the first marquis in the world to be conferred the title of marquis. Shanghai City also had the halo of being the world's #1 county. All these factors superimposed on each other and finally led to this matter. The calculations involved were not as simple as one might imagine. Even Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang had been conferred the title, so it was almost impossible for them to receive the same treatment. Of course, compared to Di Chun and the others, Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang still had an advantage. 16th of the 7th month, Shanghai City. 2 envoys returned to Shanghai City, bringing with them 2 imperial edicts from the emperor. Ouyang Shuo received the 2 imperial edicts and heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player, don't say you have nothing to wear. You have been conferred the title of Southern Border Protector General by both the Emperor of Dali and the Emperor of Chuanzhou. Approve. Do you accept the appointment? Yes. System notification. The appointment of Southern Border Protector General has been successful. You will be granted an exclusive Protector General seal. With a swoosh, the 2 imperial edicts in Ouyang Shua's hands turned into a ray of golden light and fused together. When the golden light dissipated, a noble golden seal appeared in his hands. The Southern Border Protector General's golden seal was even more exquisite than Ouyang Shua's Lianzhou Marquis seal. From now on, the Lianzhou Marquis seal would be Ouyang Shua's personal seal. The official seal would be the Southern Border Protector General Golden Seal. Name: Southern Border Protector General Golden Seal, dark gold, type, accessory, characteristics. Guards the southern border. The territory under the jurisdiction of the Lord is no longer limited by the size of the territory. The entire southern border will be guarded by the Golden Seal, receiving the protection and approval of the Imperial Court. Evaluation. With this Golden Seal, the Lord can establish his own residence and freely appoint and dismiss subordinates. The effect of the Southern Border Protector General Golden Seal was reflected in the special characteristic of guarding the southern border. Once it received the protection and approval of the Imperial Court, the people of Jingzhou County, Laizhou County, and other conquered territories would rapidly rise. The resistance of the local old forces would also weaken by more than a level. Justifiable. This was a situation like this. Otherwise, Ouyang Shuo wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to obtain such an official position. Just as Ouyang Shuo was looking at the attributes of the Golden Seal, he heard another system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player not saying that you have no clothes. It has been detected that the Southern Border Protector General Golden Seal and the Lianzhou Marquis Seal can be fused with the Qilin Golden Seal, facilitating the unsealing of the Qilin Golden Seal. Do you want to fuse them? Ouyang Shuo was overjoyed. There was such a good thing. Fuse! Ouyang Shuo didn't have any hesitation. The Golden Qilin Seal was the key to establishing a country. If it could be unsealed as soon as possible, Ouyang Shuo would do anything. System notification. Congratulations to player don't say you have no clothes. The Southern Border Protector General Golden Seal and the Lianzhou Marquis Seal have successfully fused with the Golden Qilin Seal. The two seals have disappeared. The Golden Qilin Seal's attributes have changed. Please check for yourself. With a whoosh, the two seals turned into two rays of golden light and entered the Golden Qilin Seal. Under the baptism of the golden light, the dim surface of the Golden Qilin Seal became bright. Name: Qilin Seal, purple gold. Type: accessory. Characteristics: demon suppression and exorcism, untainted by all evils. Demons retreat. Characteristics: guards the southern border. The territory under the jurisdiction of the Lord is no longer limited by the size of the territory. The entire southern border will be guarded by the Golden Seal, receiving the protection and approval of the Imperial Court. Characteristics: Marquis Seal increases the popularity of the territory by 10. Characteristics: Fortune Infusion. The Golden Qilin Seal is blessed by the two positions of Southern Border Protector General and Lianzhou Marquis. It will continue to guide the fortune of the territory and the popularity of the people into the Golden Seal, helping to unseal it. The higher the popularity of the territory and the larger the territory, the faster the speed of unsealing. Evaluation. This is a sealed Emperor's Golden Seal. It can only be unsealed by the soul of the guardian Qilin. After it is completely unsealed, it can suppress the fortune of a country. It is a supreme treasure. So that's how it is. The function of the two golden seals is to inject the fortune of the territory. Fortune, dragon veins, and other feng shui theories have always been vague and inconclusive, but they do exist. When Gaia integrated feng shui information, it introduced the setting of feng shui into the game. For the players, the source of fortune in the innate attribute was actually a materialization of fortune. And for the Lord, what was important was the fortune of the territory, and the future was the fortune of the dynasty. If the fortune was strong, the country would prosper and the people would be at peace. If the fortune was weak, there would be a catastrophe, and the people would have no way to live. Therefore, in the past dynasties there was a saying of auspiciousness. In the game, the fortune was linked to the level of governance of the territory and the popularity of the people. Gaia wanted to guide the Lord to pay attention to the popularity of the territory through the setting of fortune. The popularity of the people was the greatest and strongest fortune. At the same time, the fortune of the territory would feed back to the Lord. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo's source of fortune would gradually be strengthened with the strength of the territory, and it would no longer be as unlucky as it was now. In short, it was a two-way symbiotic relationship. After the fusion, the Qilin Golden Seal not only integrated the characteristics of the Southern Border Protector General Golden Seal, but also the characteristics of the Lianzhou Marquis Seal Marquis. It had to be said that this was the effect of 1 + 1 = 2. This fusion was similar to the fusion of the title of the territory. After the fusion, Ouyang Shuo's seal became the only Qilin Golden Seal, and there was no distinction between public and private. After the Qilin Golden Seal was fused, a system announcement sounded in the China server. System announcement. Congratulations to the Marquis of Lianzhou for being conferred the title of Southern Border Protector General by the Dali Imperial Court and Xuanzhou Imperial Court. Marquis of Lianzhou is allowed to establish the Southern Border Protectorate. As soon as the announcement came out, the players were completely confused. At first glance, the title of Southern Border Protector General seemed to be very arrogant, but the players didn't know what it was for. However, since it could trigger the system announcement, the players knew that there must be a hidden meaning behind it. As expected of the Marquis of Lianzhou, he could always make unexpected achievements. Compared to the adventurer players, the Lord players were much more attentive. In particular, Di Chen and the others were even more attentive, trying to guess the deeper meaning behind it. As for Bai Hua and the others, Ouyang Shua directly informed them. Immediately, they made a fuss, wanting to seek the position of provincial governor. To be continued. Chapter 405. Handan City, the capital. Southern Frontier Governor? Di Chen muttered to himself. The peerless beauty was worthy of being the female Zhuge Liang. She was erudite and had a very clear understanding of the position of Protector General in ancient times. She immediately explained and then said, Nanjiang, Marquis Lianzhou really has a big appetite. Does he want to dominate the south? Di Chen's tone was a little strange, as if he didn't agree, but also as if he was gloating. Shanghai City and Handan City were located in the south and north respectively. It was unlikely that their territories in the game would be bordering each other. As for his old rivals, Xiongba and Lord Chunxin, their territories were located in Jiangnan Province and Jinshu Province respectively. In the near future, it was possible that they would be bordering Shanghai City's territory. Thinking that these two guys would have to face Wei Yuwei head-on in the future, Di Chen was secretly pleased. Why did he apply for this position? Di Chen still couldn't figure it out. I guess it has something to do with the recently concluded Battle of Lijiu. Oh! Peerless Elegance frowned. Marquis Lianzhou is the first lord to occupy a second county. But not long after the Battle of Lijiu, he applied for such a position. Isn't it too much of a coincidence? Di Chen nodded, his lips curling into a smile. Having Peerless Elegance strategize for him really saved him a lot of trouble. Compared to a strategist, Peerless Elegance was not inferior. In ancient times, Peerless Elegance would be a talented girl like Zhuo Wenjun or Ban Zhao. Let Imperial Wind investigate. Imperial Wind was the intelligence agency of Handan City, headed by Peerless Elegance. Peerless Elegance nodded, still frowning. What's wrong? Di Chen didn't understand. He rarely saw such an expression on Peerless Elegance's face. Don't you think it's strange? Strange? What's strange? Who's strange? Di Chen was even more puzzled. Marquis Lianzhou. What about him? Marquis Lianzhou's understanding of the game is a little too advanced. All along, he has always been one step ahead of everyone else. If he was just a beta player, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to do this. Di Chen raised his eyebrows. Now that you mention it, that's true. After a pause, he continued to ask, is there any progress in the investigation of his real identity by Imperial Wind? That's exactly what I find strange. Peerless Elegance sighed and said, through the clue of Lin Jing, Imperial Wind finally found out the real identity of He Yuwei. The problem is, in reality, Ouyang Shua is just an ordinary university graduate. What about his sister? That little girl is a bit strange. Imperial Wind wanted to search for Ouyang Bing's personal information through the Resident Information Network. I never expected that her information would be encrypted by Gaia. There's no way for me to view it. The two looked at each other speechlessly. For Gaia to personally encrypt it, how big of a secret was it? Little did they know that this was a huge misunderstanding. When Guya found Binger, he realized that the little girl was very talented. Naturally, he had to encrypt her personal information. It was not that Binger had some amazing background. This misunderstanding saved Ouyang Shua a lot of trouble. Although Ouyang Shuo was no longer afraid of his real identity being exposed at this point, it was still good to be able to stop some people from spying on him and prevent them from taking risks out of desperation. He had to admit that Binger was really his lucky star. On the 20th of July, another system announcement rang out. System announcement. Congratulations to player Battlewolf for becoming the 5th Lord of China to be promoted to a rank 1 county. Achievement points awarded, 3,600. System announcement. China has successfully promoted 5 counties, triggering the campaign system. The 4th campaign, the Battle of Giant Deer, will officially begin in 3 days. Please look forward to it. Friendly reminder. The Battle of Giant Deer is a non-mandatory campaign scenario mission. Only rank 3 counties and above are qualified to participate. The Battle of Giant Deer was Xiang Yu's masterpiece. It was also the most famous chapter in the records of the Grand Historian. The main force of the Chu army had just been wiped out by Zhang Han, and Liu Bang had sent a division of his army to the west. However, Xiang Yu had only led his remaining men to wipe out at least 100,000 Qin soldiers led by Wang Li, and at the same time, he had defeated Zhang Han's army of 200,000. Xiang Yu killed Su Jiao, captured Wang Li, and subdued Zhang Han, turning the tables on the rebel army. It was Xiang Yu who rescued the rebel army from the brink of death and pushed the Great Qin Empire to victory. After this battle, the main force of the Great Qin Empire was annihilated. However, such a glorious battle left many doubts in the future. For example, Xiang Yu only brought 3 days' worth of rations to fight to the death. On the other hand, Wang Li only surrendered 2 months later. Furthermore, it was clearly recorded in the records of the Grand Historian that he surrendered to the cowardly vassal army. While the vassal army was watching the battle, Xiang Yu defeated Zhang Han single-handedly and eliminated Wang Li right under Zhang Han's nose. Why did he fail to eliminate Zhang Han 6 months after he took command of the vassal army? Furthermore, when Zhang Han proposed an alliance, Xiang Yu pretended to accept on the surface before launching a sneak attack. Yet, he still failed to eliminate Zhang Han. There was no doubt about Xiang Yu's greatness, and his meritorious service was unquestionable. As the number 1 general in history, his fighting prowess was off the charts, and his ability to command was commendable as well. Coupled with his tragic heroism, the hegemon king of Western Chu had always been eulogized by the future generations. However, with just the Battle of Giant Deer, the truth of history was shrouded in a layer of fog. What was the logic behind Wang Li's surrender, Zhang Han's helplessness and depression when he accepted the reorganization, and the internal strife of the Great Qin Empire had all become mysteries. It was just that no one knew how Gaia would play out this epic battle. Compared to the Battle of Chongping, the threshold for the Battle of Giant Deer was raised by 2 minor levels. There were around 2,000 territories in the China region, and they were all first-grade counties at the very least, with the majority being second-grade counties. Third-grade counties accounted for around 20% of the territories, and there were around 400 of them. According to the rules, a third-grade county could lead 3,000 soldiers. If all the third-grade counties in the China region participated in the Battle of Giant Deer, the total number of soldiers would reach around 1.2 million. Such a terrifying army would far surpass the combined forces of both sides in the Battle of Giant Deer. The biggest variable in this battle was the players. This would be the first time that the number of outsiders would surpass that of the camp. Why was Ouyang Shuo so certain? Third-grade counties were the biggest hurdle in the territory. Once they crossed it, they would be able to see the world. If they couldn't cross it, they would be eliminated. If they weren't killed by other lords, then they would be killed by the rebels in the wilderness. After the Battle of Giant Deer, the era of prefectures would truly begin. As such, any lord with the slightest bit of ambition wouldn't miss out on the Battle of Giant Deer. This was the best opportunity for them to become third-grade marquises. If they missed it, it would be too late for regret. Against such a massive army, the strength of a single alliance was rather pitiful. Be it the Mountain and Sea Alliance or the Yen-Huang Alliance, none of them were able to play a solo role in this battle. In the Mountain and Sea Alliance, Ouyang Shua led 20,000 soldiers, Bai Hua and Feng Chihuang each led 10,000, and the remaining dragon-seeking Acupoint, Siege Lion, Song Wen, and Baiyan each led 3,000. In total, there were only 52,000 soldiers, which was only 4% of the total. As for Mu Lanyue, ever since she joined Shanghai City, she was no longer able to lead troops alone. Similar to Mu Lanyue was Cliff Mountain City, which was under Bing Er's name. The dragon-seeking Acupoint, Xiongba, and the others of the Yen-Huang Alliance had painstakingly built up an advantage in contribution points over the past 3 battles, but now they were being held back by the third-grade marquises. Their only advantage was that they were only a step away from becoming third-grade marquises. There was no doubt that after the Battle of Giant Deer, these old territories would be the first to be promoted to prefectures. A month ago, Ouyang Shua had been thinking about what role Shanghai City would play in the Battle of Giant Deer. What role would the Mountain and Sea Alliance play? A month later, Ouyang Shua had already come to a conclusion. After the system announcement, the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance gathered in Shanghai City once more. The plaque of the Lianzhou Marquis Manor had been removed and replaced with the plaque of the Southern Protectorate Manor. In the main hall, the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance were seated. There was no doubt that the Mountain and Sea Alliance would choose the state of Qin. It was for no other reason than Bai Qi. With Bai Qi, the military god of the state of Qin, both Wang Qi and Zhang Han would willingly give up their authority. If Ouyang Shua didn't make use of this innate advantage, he would be a fool. While Ouyang Shua admired Xiang Yu, he had no choice but to make an enemy out of him. There were countless players who liked Xiang Yu. He just didn't know what choice they would make. As soon as the system announcement appeared, Ouyang Shua sent a message to Bai Qi, telling him to return as soon as possible. As for the Battle of Zhaoqing County, he could only leave it for later. During the battle, the territories of the players would be under the protection of the system. As such, even if Ouyang Shua were to attack Zhaoqing County, he wouldn't be able to do so. Similarly, the rebel army in the wilderness would temporarily cease their activities and not attack the territories of the players. Other than summoning Bai Qi, Ouyang Shua also summoned a general, Lai. The reason why he summoned Lai was to deal with Xiang Yu. The battle between the generals and Xiang Yu would most likely take place in the Battle of Giant Deer. General Lai would lead the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division of the Soaring Dragon Legion, the Mountain Barbarian Heavy Brigade, to participate in the Battle of Giant Deer. The other participating forces included the Imperial Guard Division and the 3,000 Featherwood Guard. In addition to the 500 heavy swordsmen that Bai Qi had brought with him, there would be a total of 19,500 soldiers. Ouyang Shua decided to give up on the remaining 500 slot. The army of Shanghai City had already been organized. Ouyang Shua wouldn't conscript another army just for 500 soldiers. The Battle of Giant Deer would be a slaughter of millions of soldiers. 500 soldiers was simply a drop in the bucket. To be continued. Chapter 406. P.S. It's a 4,200-word chapter. Are there any surprises? Are there any? Wui, what do you think about the Battle of Giant Deer? As soon as Bai Hua finished speaking, everyone turned to look at Ouyang Shua. That's right. In everyone's hearts, Ouyang Shua's understanding of war was several levels higher than theirs. The alliance of mountains and seas' glorious achievements in the previous 3 battles were the best proof. Unconsciously, everyone had grown accustomed to listening to Ouyang Shua's arrangements. When Ouyang Shua heard this, he furrowed his brows. This wasn't a good sign. If everyone became dependent on him, they would gradually lose the vitality of the team. Ouyang Shua wasn't the god of prophecy, so he didn't know much about the battles. Maximizing the strength of the team was the right way. The Battle of Giant Deer involves too many interests. It's almost impossible for us to unite the majority of the players in the same faction as we did in the previous 3 battles. After all, this is related to the promotion to a county city. Even within the faction, there will be competition. Ouyang Shuo looked around and continued, therefore, everyone should be mentally prepared for this battle. The alliance of mountains and sea might not be able to outshine others. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Hua and the others fell into deep thought. Among the members, the most nervous were the dragon-seeking acupoint, Siege Lion, Baiyan and Songwon. The dragon-seeking acupoint and Siege Lion were fine. They were only 1,000 contribution points away from becoming third-rank marquises. Through the Battle of Giant Deer, it shouldn't be a problem for them to become third-rank marquises. Baiyan and Songwon would have to engage in hand-to-hand combat with the other lords. With Bai Qi around, aren't you overthinking things, big brother? Siege Lion asked. Ouyang Shuo shook his head. Bai Qi's usefulness is unquestionable. The problem is, based on your understanding of Gaia over the past year and a half, do you think Gaia will restrict this? They will. Therefore, even if Bai Qi can provide some assistance, it must be within the bounds of the rules. He can't act recklessly and harm the interests of the other players. Furthermore, with Bai Qi's personality, he will treat all armies equally. Ouyang Shuo paused for a moment, then continued, therefore, we should abandon all illusions and prepare for a tough battle. I agree with Big Brother. Dragon Search Acupoint stepped forward and said, it's about time we show the leader of the China server the true colors of the alliance of mountains and seas. Ouyang Shuo smiled and nodded when he heard this. Also, during the campaign I might disappear for a period of time, so don't make a fuss about it. Ouyang Shuo gave everyone a heads-up to prevent any misunderstandings. Feng Qihuang looked at Ouyang Shuo suspiciously before she squeezed her eyes and chuckled. Wui, what are you up to now? Can you bring me along? Ouyang Shuo was speechless. Can you imagine the visual impact of a dignified goddess suddenly acting like a hooligan? This was the impact that Ouyang Shuo was enduring. Of course, he knew Feng Qihuang's intention. In this battle, other than Ouyang Shuo, Bai Hua and Feng Qihuang felt the least pressure. Moreover, every time Ouyang Shuo went on a solo mission, he would obtain an unexpected harvest. +1, please. As a matter of fact, the aloof goddess Bai Hua also joined in the fun. The 2 goddesses were naturally arrogant in their territory, but in the alliance, they returned to their original nature. As for dragon seeking, acupuncture point and the rest, they could only drool with envy. They knew that their mission in the Battle of Giant Deer was to follow the main force and earn contribution points. As for other thoughts, they could rest for now. Ouyang Shuo did not want to monopolize it, otherwise he wouldn't have announced it in front of everyone. He smiled and said, then prepare 500 of your most elite soldiers. When we arrive at the battle map, follow me to the wilderness. Okay. The 2 goddesses were overflowing with excitement. At this point, the mountain and sea alliances gathering came to an end. At the same time, the Yan-Huang alliance was also having a meeting in Handan City. Their plans could only be revealed in the battle. A great battle was about to begin. On the 22nd, Eli led the Mountain Barbarian Heavy Infantry Brigade back to Shanghai City through the teleportation array. That afternoon, the Cavern Military Factory delivered 150,000 military rations pills. On the battle map, Ouyang Shuo's storage bag could not transport military rations pills. This batch of military rations pills was distributed to the soldiers in advance, so they could carry it with them. Of course, only the 3,000 Yulin guards received military rations pills, and each received 50 pills. 50 military rations pills were packed in a military rations bag, which was a small bag. At the same time, the combat division also provided each cavalry with a water bag sewn from cowhide. When a water bag was filled with water, it was enough to supply the soldiers with water for a day. The cowhide water bag was learned from the grasslands after the grassland tribes surrendered. The cowhide used was made from the leftover scraps of leather armor made by the armor workshop. The Yulin Guards were elites, but their consumption was also shocking. A Yulin Guard, together with his warhorse, had to consume 5 military rations pills a day. Therefore, 50 military rations pills could only support them for 10 days. It was no longer possible to use military rations pills on a large scale. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the 23rd, Bai Qi rushed back to Shanghai City. Along with Bai Qi were 500 Iron Eagle swordsmen that he had personally trained. Bai Qi's expression was somewhat complicated. When he arrived at the main map, Bai Qi already knew all about the history of Qin. Qin swept across the universe and eventually unified the Six States. Bai Qi was naturally happy. However, the powerful Great Qin Empire could not last more than 3 generations. This made Bai Qi sigh. As an old Qin man, Bai Qi's feelings for Qin were really incomprehensible to others. Even Wei Yang did not have such deep feelings for Bai Qi. Now, Bai Qi was going to participate in the Battle of Jilu. He was going to see his old country and the Qin soldiers again. As the god of war of Qin, this special feeling was really difficult for outsiders to understand. That night, Ouyang Shua had a secret conversation with Bai Qi in the study. Gaia Year 2, July 24, 9 o'clock in the morning. The system announcement rang on time. System announcement: 209 BC, 12 years after Qin Shi Huang unified China, the Qin dynasty's internal conflicts caused turmoil, causing the entire country to fall into civil strife. The anti-Qin forces, mainly composed of the nobles of the Six States, and the Qin dynasty's repressive army, began a life-and-death battle that engulfed the entire country. In 208 BC, the main forces of both sides gathered at Jilu City and engaged in an unprecedented decisive battle that determined the fate of both sides. This battle ended with the anti-Qin forces' complete victory and the Qin army's complete defeat. The fourth epic battle, Battle of Jilu, officially begins. 20,000 of Shanghai City's most elite soldiers were lined up in the plaza, ready to set off. Checking the battle conditions, confirming the number of participants, choosing the faction. The Battle of Jilu was divided into the Qin dynasty faction and the anti-Qin faction. Ouyang Shua naturally chose the Qin dynasty faction. System notification: congratulations to player who says that has no clothes for activating battle teleportation, teleporting 19,500 people. In the second system update, there was no longer a teleportation fee for battle map teleportation. Otherwise, Ouyang Shua would lose money again. System notification: teleportation begins. After a short moment of dizziness, Ouyang Shua and his party appeared at the Jilu battlefield. System notification: welcome player who says that has no clothes for the Qin dynasty faction's headquarters, Jiuan City. In 210 BC, after the death of Qin Shi Huang, the second Qin emperor, Hu Hai, with the help of Zhao Gao and Li Si, seized the throne through a palace conspiracy. He continued to implement cruel policies, inciting the dissatisfaction of the entire country. In 209 BC, Chen Xing and Wu Guang revolted in Day's village, opening the prelude to the rebellion against the tyrannical Qin. On the eve of the Battle of Jilu, the 6 states of Shandong, Zhao, Qi, Yan, Wei, Han, and Chu had all successfully re-established themselves and had their own territories and armed forces. The Qin dynasty was obviously not prepared for this. There were only 2 mobile forces that could be mobilized to suppress the rebellion. One was Zhang Han's army, and the other was Wang Li's army. Zhang Han's army was formed from the convicts of Mount Li. At the start of the Battle of Jilu, the total number of soldiers reached 300,000. Because the source of the soldiers were convicts, they had only been formed for a short time. Although they were slightly weaker than the main Qin army, they were still of a decent standard. Wang Li's army was the elite army stationed in the north to guard against the barbarians. This army was one of the main forces of the Qin dynasty. It was highly militarized, and its greatest strength was its swift and fierce cavalry. The Qin Northern Army was 300,000. Because they had to prepare for the border, they couldn't move all of them south. They had to maintain a certain number to defend and intimidate the Xiongnu. When Qin Shi Huang swept through the northern kingdom, this army didn't move south. From this, it could be seen that the Qin army was respectable. They would rather Qin perish than China. During the Battle of Jiulu, Wang Li led 150,000 elite soldiers to the south. The two armies added together made up the entire army of the Qin dynasty, a total of 450,000 soldiers. At that time, the area south of the Yellow River to the Huai River was the old haunt of Chu. It was not only the place where the uprising took place, it was also the area where the uprising was the strongest. Therefore, two Qin armies entered this area and carried out the operation to suppress the rebellion. Zhang Han killed Qin Shing's Zhang Chu, Chu's Xiangliang, Qi's Tianqi, and Lin Ji's Weijiu. He basically defeated the anti-Qin forces south of the Yellow River. As for the situation of Wang Li's army, the history books only recorded that he suffered a defeat. In the records of the Grand Historian, it was mentioned that in the 10th month of the 3rd year, Liu Bang's army defeated the commandant of the east and Wang Li's army at Chenggunan. At this time, internal strife broke out in Zhao north of the Yellow River. The king of Zhao, Wu Chun, was originally a general under Qin Shing. He was ordered to attack Zhao, and after taking down Handan, he proclaimed himself the king of Zhao. The king of Zhao, Li Liang, was humiliated by Wu Chen's sister. In a fit of rage, he killed Wu Chun and his sister in Handan. After the officials of Zhao, Zhang Er and Chen Yu escaped, they made Zhao Xie the king of Zhao in Xandu, north of Handan. They then defeated Li Liang, who came after them, and Li Liang went to seek refuge with Zhang Han. With Li Liang's intelligence, Zhang Han gained a detailed understanding of the rebels north of the Yellow River. After defeating the main force of the Chu army and killing Xiang Liang, Zhang Han decided to abandon Chu and cross the river to attack Zhao. And so, the Battle of Jiulu began. When Zhang Han felt that the rebels were no longer a threat, he quickly led his army north to carry out the strategy of attacking Zhao first and Chu later. The first step of this strategy was to hold the Guangyang Road so that the rebels could not advance south. Then, they would seize Luoyang and cut off Zhang Han's communication with Guangzhou. This strategic location was to occupy Jianyuan. Jianyuan City became the Qin Army's headquarters. The Qin Army's players all landed in Magnetic Origin City. In the 9th month of the 2nd year of Qin II, Wang Li's army surrounded Jiulu. A month later, in the 10th month of the 3rd year of Qin II, Zhang Han's army conquered Handan. After Zhang Han's army conquered Handan, due to the strong anti-Qin base there, in order to prevent it from being used by the enemy again, Zhang Han tore down the city walls and moved all the residents to Hanoi. The goal of this move was to eliminate a potential threat between Jianyuan and Jiulu. At the same time, it was to transport the food they seized from the city to Jianyuan. Zhang Han swept through Handan and the surrounding areas, transporting a sizable amount of food to Jianyuan. Due to the lack of food, the residents had no choice but to move to other places. After that, Zhang Han rushed to Jiulu to reinforce Wang Li's army. Zhang Han split his forces to the south of Jiulu and Jianyuan. At the south of Jiulu, he built a path to the Yellow River. With this, a complete food transportation route was formed. From the main camp at Jianyuan, through the Huan River, into the Yellow River, through the path to Zhang Han's camp at the south of Jiulu, and finally to Wang Li's army at Jiulu. After Jiulu was surrounded, Zhang Er's connections started to work. The anti-Qin vassals sent reinforcements. However, against the massive and powerful Qin army, no one dared to advance and only watched from afar. At that time, there were 80,000 Zhao soldiers both inside and outside the city. The combined forces of the anti-Qin vassals amounted to 300,000. When Zhang Han and Wang Li attacked Handan and Jiulu, King Huai of Chu ordered Song Yi and Xiang Yu to reinforce them. Song Yi did not want to reinforce Zhao and chose to wait and see. Therefore, the Chu army stopped at Anyang for 46 days. Song Yi led the main force and stationed Xiang Yu at Anyang, which was roughly the same distance from Julu, Su Province and Linzi, waiting for an opportunity. As the vanguard, the 20,000 elite Chu soldiers led by Deputy General Qin Bu and General Pu had already reached the outskirts of the Julu battlefield. They camped at the banks of the Yellow River and waited for Song Yi's orders. Xiang Yu, who had a grudge with Qin and was eager for revenge, decisively killed Song Yi and seized command of the army. Xiang Yu led the 60,000 soldiers to the banks of the Yellow River and met up with Qin Bu and General Pu. Of the 60,000 Chu soldiers, 30,000 were the elite personal guards with the 8,000 disciples from River East as the core force. Therefore, the total strength of the anti-Qin alliance was 460,000. In terms of overall strength, both sides had about the same number of soldiers. In terms of combat strength, the Qin camp was slightly stronger. When Xiang Yu led his troops to the banks of the Yellow River, it had been 2 months since Julu was surrounded. Gaia predicted that the time of the Battle of Julu would be when Xiang Yu led his troops to the banks of the Yellow River. The landing point of the anti-Qin players was set at Xiang Yu's main camp by the banks of the Yellow River. If not for the intervention of the players, the highlight of the Battle of Julu would have been about to happen. Zhang Han had built a 10-kilometer-long supply route from Julu south to the banks of the Yellow River and deployed troops along the route to protect them, forming a triangle with Wang Li's army. Xiang Yu's strategy was to first send a vanguard to disrupt the supply route for a period of time, causing Wang Li's army to run out of food and weaken their fighting strength. Then, he would lead the main force to cross the river. Due to the Chu army's harassment, a large amount of food was stuck in the supply route and could not be transported away. In order to seize the food, Xiang Yu used the tactic of only bringing 3 days' worth of rations with him, effectively triggering the fighting spirit of the Chu army. After that, it was naturally to capture Wang Li and subdue Zhang Han. For the players, this was just the beginning of the Great War. To be continued. Chapter 407. The map was Jiuan City. After teleporting to Jiuan City, Ouyang Shua handed over the command of the Imperial Guard Division to Bai Qi. Ouyang Shua himself only commanded 3,000 Featherwood Guards. This time, the Mountain and Sea Alliance's army was not disorganized like in the previous 3 battles. Instead, they were all under the command of their respective generals and unified under Bai Qi's command. Zhang Liao of Lingxi City, Wang Bei of Fallen Phoenix City, Qin Qiong of Xuanlong County, and other generals were the best choices. After registering in the city, the players' troops were arranged to the barracks in the west of the city. Just as the members of the Mountain and Sea Alliance were reorganizing their troops, the battle announcement rang out. Battle announcement. A total of 400 lords participated in the Battle of Giant Deer, with a total of 124,4500 troop. The Qin dynasty has 228 lords, with a total of 714,4500 troop. The anti-Qin dynasty has 172 lords, with a total of 530,000 troop. It was an open secret that Shanghai City had chosen the Qin dynasty's side. After the previous 3 battles, the lords of the China server had finally learned their lesson. In the Battle of the Giant Deer, many of the lords of the various territories had chosen to side with the alliance of mountains and seas. As for the Yan-Wang alliance, they all chose the anti-Qin dynasty's side. It was not that the Yan-Wang alliance had made any special arrangements, but with their arrogance, they did not want to serve under Bai Qi. Both sides were evenly matched, and there was no absolute disadvantage in choosing either side. Half of the lords who chose the anti-Qin dynasty's side wanted to subdue Xiang Yu. Ouyang Shua could only mourn for these lords. Given the overlord's personality, how could he be willing to be under someone else? In his previous life, no one could subdue Xiang Yu. Of course, some of the lords who were familiar with the history of the War of Giant Deer had set their sights on an unknown soldier who was in charge of the cookhouse. That person's fame in the future was not inferior to Xiang Yu's. Even Ouyang Shuo was extremely tempted by that person. Unfortunately, they were not in the same camp, so he could only think about it. In the anti-Qin dynasty, there was also a group of famous people, such as the famous minister Xiao He. These people were staying in Ping City with Liu Bang at the moment. Ping City was 400 to 500 kilometers away from the Battle of Giant Deer. Liu Bang was given the title of Commander-in-Chief of the Western Expedition Army by King Huai of Chu, but he only had a few thousand shrimp soldiers. Even if he had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to advance west and attack Qin's Guangzhou. Campaign announcement. Because the anti-Qin faction is weaker than the Qin faction, according to the rules, the anti-Qin faction will receive a 25% increase in defense. There was a huge difference of 184,500 soldiers between the two camps. Campaign announcement. According to the results of the evaluation of nobility and merit points, the mutant representative of the Qin camp is He Yu Wui, second-rank Marquis. The representative of the anti-Qin formation camp is Di Chen, a third-rank Marquis. Di Chen's status as the representative of the mutant humans was becoming more and more stable. Battle announcement. Officially opening the Battle Contribution Points Exchange Mall. Players can choose to exchange their earned battle contribution points for corresponding special items. Players, please find out for yourselves. Finally, Gaia threw out another huge bait after the merit points reward. Ouyang Shuo scanned the merchant shop. The special items inside were very rich. Even the weapon and equipment crafting manual that Lord players coveted had 5 volumes. Unlike the Super Trade platform, the special items in the merchant shop were not duplicate. There was only one special item. Once it was exchanged by another player, it would be gone. Ouyang Shuo counted. There were a total of 200 items in the merchant shop, shared by the Lord players of the two camps. In theory, half of the lords would be able to buy a special item. Of course, there was no such good thing. Take Ouyang Shuo for example. If he had enough battle contribution points, he would naturally buy a few. Ouyang Shuo scanned the merchant shop. The special items in the merchant shop were not cheap. The most expensive were the 5 weapon and equipment crafting manual. The light armor crafting manual was priced at 40,000 battle contribution points. Not to mention how many lords could obtain such a huge amount of battle contribution points. Even if they could, they might not be willing to part with it. After all, the main goal of the lords was to advance to the noble rank. In short, the opening of the merchant shop was beneficial to the lords. At the very least, there was one more choice. After settling down, Ouyang Shuo brought Bai Qi to visit Zhang Han. Jiuan City, City Lord Mansion. Zhang Han was Qin's valiant general. If Han could not be defeated, Qin would not die. None of the countries in Shandong dared to oppose Han. However, if Qin did not have Zhao Gao's craftiness and stupidity, Han would not have surrendered to Chu. Perhaps it could even turn the tables. In history, the most convincing explanation for Zhang Han's surrender was that Zhao Gao was worried that Zhang Han's outstanding achievements would threaten his position in the court. Thus, Zhao Gao slandered Qin Tu, causing Qin Tu to be suspicious of Zhang Han and lose trust in him. The pain and panic of not being trusted by the emperor was the main reason why Zhang Han finally surrendered. Otherwise, it would have been hard to say whether Xiang Yu could defeat Zhang Han. Zhang Han's experience was almost the same as Bai Qi's. Bai Qi's death was due to Prime Minister Fan Zhu's instigation. It could be said that this was a common problem in Qin. In the first year of Han, Liu Bang used Han Xian's plan to return from the ancient road and attack King Yong, Zhang Han. Liu Bang attacked the abandoned hill for a long time, and the Han army tried to flood the city. Zhang Han then drew his sword and committed suicide. Thus, just like Xiang Yu, Zhang Han also had a trace of tragedy on him. The only difference was that Xiang Yu's suicide at the Wu River was praised throughout the ages. On the other hand, Zhang Han's suicide was buried in the long river of history due to his disgraceful experience of surrendering a general. Someone once said that Zhang Han was second to Bai Qi, and his status was even higher than Wang Jian. Of course, this was only the opinion of one person. Speaking of which, Zhang Han had a deep relationship with Shanghai City. Zhang Han's ancestor was Jiang Shang, Grand Duke Jiang. Thus, Ouyang Shuo was confident that he could subdue Zhang Han. Zhang Han received Ouyang Shuo and Bai Qi in the living room. Zhang Han had just won a great victory in the south, and he seemed to be in high spirits. His lean and cold face didn't look as unbearable as before. The observant Ouyang Shuo noticed a hint of gloominess in Zhang Han's expression. After conquering Handan, Zhao Gao had probably grown wary of Zhang Han. The sharp-witted Zhang Han had probably also noticed that the royal court's attitude toward him was changing. During the conquest of the south, Qin Ershi had placed great trust in Zhang Han, entrusting the entire army of the empire to him. Even Wang Li, who was conferred the title of Marquis of Lai, had to obey Zhang Han's commands. Who was Wang Li? He was the grandson of the famous general of Qin, Wang Jian, and the son of Wang Ben. The 3 generations of the Wang clan were all famous generals, and that was truly incredible. From this, one could see how capable Zhang Han was. How can an extraordinary man be without clothes? Paying respects to the general, Ouyang Shuo bowed to Zhang Han from afar. Bai Qi, who was standing behind him, looked at Zhang Han with interest. Zhang Han nodded slightly before raising his head to look at Bai Qi. Bai Qi's actions were simply too eye-catching, such that it was impossible for him not to notice it. Just a single look was enough to make Zhang Han's heart skip a beat. Similar. It was simply too similar. There were very few generals in Qin who hadn't seen Bai Qi's portrait before. Who is this general? Even the usually calm Zhang Han was a little flustered at this moment. I am Bai Qi. Bai Qi shot a glance at Zhang Han, and a hint of admiration flashed across his eyes. For a god general like him, he was able to determine the capability of a general just by looking at them. Clearly, Zhang Han's capability had caught Bai Qi's eye. Bai Qi's voice was calm, but it sounded like a clap of thunder in Zhang Han's ears. Calm, martial lord. It's really calm, martial lord. Zhang Han was shocked by Bai Qi's words, and he quickly lowered his head to pay his respects. Zhang Han pays respect to calm, martial lord. According to the game's settings, the China region would be spanning 5,000 years, and this sort of space-time distortion was a common occurrence. As such, the powerful Gaia had a similar setting for all of its NPCs. When Zhang Han saw Bai Qi, he didn't think that he would come back from the dead or anything like that. Instead, he chose to accept Bai Qi's greeting. Bai Qi nodded and accepted Zhang Han's bow calmly. After exchanging pleasantries, the 3 of them returned to their seats. Naturally, Zhang Han didn't dare to sit on the main seat, so he had Bai Qi take it. However, Ouyang Shuo was Bai Qi's sovereign, so he couldn't sit beneath Bai Qi. In the end, it was Ouyang Shuo who ended up sitting on the main seat. This was truly unprecedented in the history of the game. For an inhuman representative to sit on the main seat of their faction, it would be a huge shock if Zhang Han refused to go. Fortunately, Ouyang Shuo was tactful enough to remain silent throughout the entire process. Most of the conversation was between Zhang Han and Bai Qi. Without any hesitation, Zhang Han revealed everything that had happened in the past year to Bai Qi. After that, Zhang Han bowed deeply and said, "Calm, martial lord, please lead the army. I, Zhang Han, am willing to be the vanguard." He was going to hand over his military authority. Ouyang Shuo glanced at Zhang Han in bewilderment. To be able to hand over his military authority so readily, Zhang Han really didn't play by the rules. Military authority was a symbol of a general's life. By handing over his military authority, Zhang Han was entrusting his life to Bai Qi. Had it been any other general, Zhang Han wouldn't have agreed to it so readily. One must know that he hadn't encountered any unimaginable setbacks yet, and this was the time for him to make a name for himself. However, Bai Qi was different. He was the war god of the Qin dynasty. It was a taboo for military strategists to replace a general in the midst of battle. However, such a taboo didn't exist for Bai Qi at all. Bai Qi's prestige in the Qin dynasty was simply too great. When he died, the citizens of the Qin dynasty paid their respects to him. Because of that, the Qin soldiers did not have any objections towards Bai Qi, they only welcomed him. As for the other general, Wang Li, he was probably thinking along the same lines as Zhang Han. Furthermore, Wang Li's army was the most orthodox of the Qin dynasty's soldiers, so they admired and revered Bai Qi even more. Just like that, Bai Qi easily obtained the military authority of the Qin dynasty. To be continued. Chapter 408. A system notification rang in Ouyang Shua's ears as Bai Qi took command of the army. System notification. Congratulations to player Bai Qi for obtaining the authority to command the Qin dynasty's camp. You are rewarded 50,000 contribution points and 20 contribution points. How powerful! 50,000 contribution points was enough to make other players' eyes turn bloodshot with jealousy. In other words, if Ouyang Shua obtained 10,000 contribution points, he would be rewarded with an additional 2,000 contribution points. With the achievements of Shanghai City's army, Ouyang Shua would be able to reap another huge harvest. Following that was a battle announcement. Battle announcement. Shanghai City's General Bai Qi has fulfilled the hidden conditions and obtained the authority to command the Qin dynasty's camp. Bai Qi will take over Zhang Han's command of the Qin dynasty's 450,000 strong army and the Inhuman army. The moment the announcement was made, all the lords had mixed feelings. For the lords of the Qin dynasty's camp, they had bet on the right treasure this time. War god Bai Qi would definitely be able to command the army much better than Zhang Han. Most importantly, Bai Qi would not be constrained by the imperial court. That was the most important thing. After Bai Qi took command of the army, the first order he issued was for Wang Li's army and Zhang Han's army stationed at the corridor to withdraw. They were to remove the encirclement around Giant Deer and retreat into Jiuan City. This move was beyond everyone's expectations. Even Zhang Han was perplexed. Lord of martial peace, Wang Li's army has finally managed to encircle Jiuan. Why are they withdrawing? Bai Qi shook his head and asked, "In your opinion, can Wang Li's army take down Jiuan City?" "Of course not." Zhang Han shook his head firmly. If they could, they wouldn't have been unable to make any progress for 2 months. Looking back at the Battle of Jiuan City, there was a true hero behind the scenes who had been intentionally forgotten by history. This hero was Minister Qin Yu of the state of Zhao. As mentioned earlier, King Wu Chen's general, Li Liang, was humiliated by Wu Chen's elder sister and killed King Wu Chen and his sister in Handan City. After the officials of Zhao, Zhang Er and Chen Yu escaped, they went to Xindu, north of Handan, to support the old nobleman Zhao Xie as king of Zhao, and then defeated Li Liang who was pursuing them. This Chen Yu was that Chen Yu. The mastermind of the Battle of Jiuan City was Chen Yu. Why do you say that? Let's take a look at what Chen Yu did in the Battle of Jiuan City. The first was to gather up the remaining troops. After Julu was besieged, Chen Yu actively gathered reinforcements and formed the Hebei army. The second was to communicate with Julu City. The two ministers of the state of Zhao, Zhang Er and Chen Yu, were close friends. Zhang Er, the king of Zhao, and Zhao Xie were trapped in Julu. During the siege, Chen Yu was the only one who maintained contact with the city. The third was to communicate with Xiang Yu's army and the Zhao army. Xiang Yu had killed Song Yi and led his troops to rescue Zhu Lu. The liaison between the two armies was Chen Yu. Therefore, Chun Yu was the core of communication between the city and the reinforcements. With Chun Yu outside the city, it would be difficult for Wang Li's army to take down Jilu City. Right after Zhang Han said those words, a deep frown appeared on his forehead before Bai Qi could explain himself. Now that he thought about it, retreating now was indeed the best choice. With the addition of the mutant army, the Qin army could reinforce Wang Li's army. But do not forget that the Chu camp on the other side of the Yellow River had also gained 500,000 mutant soldiers. In other words, in order to attack Giant Deer, the Qin army was divided into two. Part of it was in Jilu City and the other part was in Jiuan City. If the two armies could work together, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem was that the Chu army led by Xiang Yu was stuck at the lifeline of communication between the two armies. It was an uncomfortable situation. It was like a snake that had its weak spot stepped on. Continue attacking Giant Deer? It wouldn't be able to take it down in a short period of time. Hold the fort? And face the threat of the Chu army at any time. It was really hard to get off a tiger's back, unable to advance or retreat. With Bai Qi's command, the situation of Xiang Yu attacking Wang Li's army while Zhang Han's army watched from the sidelines wouldn't happen. However, it would be extremely difficult to defeat the anti-Qin alliance army with this. The two sides would only be able to maintain a stalemate, and no one knew how long this stalemate would last. If they were careless, the Chu army might be able to find an opening and catch them off guard. Therefore, after Bai Qi understood the situation of the battle, he decisively decided to give up the siege on Giant Deer and retreat to Jianyuan City with his entire army. This was Bai Qi, someone who never followed common sense. Retreating was only the first step in Bai Qi's strategy. He had other considerations. Bai Qi's specialty was that he liked to ponder over his opponents and strategies. He would often be able to pinpoint the crux of a battle. Seeing that Zhang Han had thought it through, Bai Qi continued, "The crux of this battle is rations." After Zhang Han conquered Handan, he plundered all the rations around Handan and transported them to Jiuan City. Thus, Zhang Han's army never ran out of rations even after being besieged for more than half a year. If the siege of Giant Deer was lifted, the Chu army's rations problem would be alleviated in a short period of time. It didn't seem to be a big problem. But the danger was hidden within the mutant army. As the saying goes, fortune and misfortune go hand in hand. Everything had its pros and cons. The 530,000 mutant army of the anti-Qin alliance was a powerful force. At the same time, it brought an unexpected burden to the alliance's logistics. Giant Deer City was besieged, and there wasn't enough rations in the city. If it was just the alliance army, they could still hold on for half a month. But with the addition of the 500,000 mutant army, the alliance army would run out of rations in less than a week. Furthermore, there wasn't any rations in the surrounding areas for the alliance army to plunder. Thus, the Qin army that had retreated to Jiuan City was already invincible before the battle even started. At the same time, Bai Qi had also analyzed Xiang Yu's personality. Given Xiang Yu's arrogance, he wouldn't continue wasting time with the Qin army. The only way out was to use Xiang Yu's best method to solve the problem, and that was to forcefully attack Jiuan City. This way, the Qin army would have the geographical advantage. All of a sudden, the Qin army was on their side. It had to be said that Bai Qi's plan was far better than Zhang Han's. Zhang Han couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The next step was to discuss how to ensure that Wang Li's army could retreat successfully and not be ambushed by the anti-Qin alliance. Zhang Han was experienced in this aspect, so he didn't need Bai Qi's guidance. On the first day of the battle, Bai Qi had already set the general tone for the entire battle. Of course, Xiang Yu's powerful individual combat strength and terrifying explosive power were the biggest uncertainty. Anyone who dared to underestimate Xiang Yu would definitely suffer a huge setback. The title of the greatest general in history wasn't just for show. In history, both Wang Li and Liu Bang had suffered under Xiang Yu's hands. The ferocious warriors of Jiangdong led by Xiang Yu had gone berserk. The Battle of Jiulu had yet to reach a conclusion. Over the next 2 days, Wang Li's army successfully retreated to Jiuan City under the protection of Zhang Han's army. Before Wang Li's army retreated, they took away all the rations in the camp. Those that couldn't be taken away were burned to ashes, leaving not a single grain for the allies. At the same time, Xiang Yu had just finished reorganizing the army of the mutants. After learning that Wang Li's army had retreated, the siege of Jiulu was unexpectedly lifted. Xiang Yu didn't think too much about it. He crossed the Yellow River and moved his army to Jiulu City. At the same time, the 300,000 vassal army that had been watching from the sidelines also entered Jiulu City. At this point, the Battle of Jiulu had taken a completely different path from history. Both sides occupied a city each, facing each other in the north and south. The specific location of Jiuan City was Shui Town in the west of Anyang. The north, south, and west sides of the town were surrounded by the Taihang mountain range, resembling a pocket. Shui Town was located at the bottom of the pocket. Anyang City happened to be the mouth of the pocket. Although it was a pocket, it wasn't a dangerous place. From Shui Town to the west, there was a road that passed through the steep Taihang mountain range and led straight to Lin Province. From there, one could enter Hanoi County, the rear of Zhang Han's army. The terrain here was dangerous. To the north was the watershed between the Zhang River and the Huan River. The Zhang River and the Huan River flowed out from the west to the east, forming a natural barrier. After Bai Qi took command of the army, he arranged for the army to build 3 layers of fortifications at the front line of Jiuan City. One after another, they advanced until they reached Jianyuan City. Although they had retreated to Jiuan City, Bai Qi still pursued a proactive defensive strategy. Building fortifications was Bai Qi's forte. At the same time, Bai Qi also roughly reorganized the 450,000 Qin soldiers and 700,000 mutants, assigning them a general defensive area. Wang Li's 150,000-strong army was mainly made up of light cavalry. Bai Qi arranged for them to be the reserve army. They were in charge of providing support to the battlefield at any time. Zhang Han's 150,000-strong army was stationed in Jiuan City. The remaining 150,000 soldiers formed a vertical defensive chain with the 3 fortifications as the axis. The 700,000-strong mutants were either stationed in the 3 layers of fortifications or on the city walls. Every unit had a specific area to defend. With this, if the mutants wanted to earn contribution points, they would have to fight against the anti-Qin alliance in the area they were in charge of. If they won, they would be rewarded. If they lost, they had no one to blame. Bai Qi's arrangement minimized the conflicts and confrontations within the mutants. The lords of the Qin dynasty had nothing to say about this arrangement. They had completely dispelled the doubts in their hearts. Bai Qi's command of the army had caused the lords to suspect that Bai Qi would favor the alliance of mountains and seas. However, it turned out that they were merely gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a petty man. Bai Qi had truly made it a point to treat everyone equally. The only strange thing was that Ouyang Shuo and the 3,000 Featherwood Guards had disappeared from Jiuan City during the chaos. Since then, until the end of the war, the lords of the Qin dynasty's camp had not seen Ouyang Shuo's figure. Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang had also disappeared along with him. Although the lords were puzzled about this, they did not take it to heart. As long as the army of Shanghai City remained in Jiuan City, nothing else was a problem. In a war like this, the role of the lords was negligible. To be continued. Chapter 409. Battle Map, Jiulu City. Xiang Yu may be strong, but the vassals will not listen to his commands obediently. In history, Xiang Yu made a name for himself in the anti-Qin army by cutting off all means of retreat. In this battle, Xiang Yu did not have the chance to do so. Therefore, Xiang Yu was not the only one who had the final say in Jiulu City. The vassals may seem insignificant, but they all have their own plans. How to tame the 300,000 vassals, including the 80,000 Zhao soldiers, and become the only leader of the anti-Qin camp is the most pressing problem for Xiang Yu. Without the cooperation of these two armies, wanting to attack Jianyuan City would just be empty talk. To Xiang Yu, the most direct method is to kill people to establish his authority. Unfortunately, there was no living target like Song Yi for Xiang Yu to show off. Just as Xiang Yu is at his wits' end, Di Qin representing the Yan-Huang alliance stood up. Like the Mountain and Sea alliance, the Yan-Huang alliance is also filled with generals. One of them is closely related to Handan City and Zhao. He is the old general Lianpe. In the Battle of Huangjin, Lianpe proved himself and gained Di Qin's trust. At this moment, he had become the #1 general under Di Qin's command, and his status was equal to Bai Qi's in Shanghai City. Like Bai Qi, Lianpe has mixed feelings about the Battle of Jilu. The Zhao of the past is no more, becoming a speck of dust in history. The state of Zhao that had been reinstated was just a wave that occasionally splashed in the long river of history. In the end, it was just a flash in the pan. Even so, Lianpe is filled with emotions. Handan, the capital of Zhao, was completely demolished by Zhang Han and turned into ruins. Lianpe feels guilty towards Zhao. The Battle of Chongping was the turning point of Zhao's decline. Similarly, in the hearts of the Zhao people, Lianpe is a respectable old general. Therefore, with Lianpe and Zhao Zhuang's help, the 80,000 Zhao soldiers were successfully brought under Xiang Yu's command. Other than that, Wu Qi under Xiongba has a certain amount of influence in Wei and Chu. Lord Chuanshan's Tiandan also had a very strong influence in Qi. As such, with the help of the Yan-Huang alliance's generals, the attitudes of the various feudal vassals gradually softened. Finally, it was decided that the alliance army would be under Xiang Yu's command. After this incident, the Yan-Huang alliance's position in Xiang Yu's heart skyrocketed. The next step was to figure out how to fight this battle. The generals discussed for a long time and came to the same conclusion. They could only attack Jianyuan City by force. It was destined to be a head-on battle. Jianyuan City's position was too good, they had to attack it. Most importantly, Jilu City didn't have enough food. If they didn't attack while they still had enough food, the consequences would be unimaginable. On the 5th day of the campaign, the battle between the two cities was finally about to begin. Where was Ouyang Shuo at this moment? Before the battle began, Ouyang Shuo had already set his sights on Liu Bang, who was far away in Pengqing. At this time, Liu Bang did not have any powerful soldiers under his command, but he was surrounded by a group of valiant generals and famous scholars. He was a perfect target. Apart from that, Ouyang Shuo was determined to get another item from Liu Bang. After Bai Qi took control of the army, Ouyang Shuo quietly left Jianyuan City according to the plan. Apart from the 3,000 Featherwood Guards, Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang also accompanied him. According to Ouyang Shuo's request, they each selected 500 of their most elite soldiers to accompany him. The elite soldiers they brought were not inferior to the Featherwood Guards. It was not a good idea to make such a big move. Apart from covering the eyes and ears of others, there was another reason. The road from Jianyuan City to Pengqing was the territory of the anti-Qin camp. If they made a big move, it would be like poking a hornet's nest. Although the main force of the Revolutionary Army was gathered in Jilu City, there were still some scattered rebels along the way. Not to mention the bandits who took advantage of the chaos of the war. Ouyang Shuo wasn't afraid, but he didn't want to fight all the way to Pengqing. Time was the key. Jilu City's food was limited. The battle between the two sides was destined to not be a long one. Therefore, Ouyang Shuo had to end the battle before the main battlefield ended. Jianyuan City was about 400 kilometers away from Pengqing. Ouyang Shuo only had a simple map and a guide that Zhang Han had provided him. The personal guards that Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang brought were also riding high-quality war horses, which were comparable to the green beetle horses. If everything went smoothly, they would reach Pengcheng in 3 to 4 days. While Di Chun and the others were coordinating in Jilu City, Ouyang Shuo was already 100 kilometers away. Ouyang Shuo was marching in the morning. Suddenly, Wang Feng, who was acting as the vanguard, rushed over. "Marquis, we found an enemy force ahead." Ouyang Shuo was stunned. They had finally encountered an army. "What's their background?" "They're very strange." Wang Feng hesitated for a moment and said, "They're not bandits, nor do they look like a revolutionary army. They're somewhat similar to us, they're more cautious when marching." Ouyang Shuo's lips curled into a smile. He turned to Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang and said, "See? We're not the only smart ones. There are many who have designs on Liu Bang. Yeah, they're all the same as you. They're all scheming and evil." Feng Qiuhuang smiled and said in a mocking tone. Ouyang Shuo was speechless. Why were they all doing bad things while he was the scapegoat? "How many enemies are there?" 3,000. Ouyang Shuo nodded. It seemed like the leader of a third-class county. Not only was he ambitious, he was also very resourceful. Once the mutant army arrived, they were not allowed to leave the barracks as they pleased after registering. They had to obey the commander's orders. Otherwise, if the army of hundreds of thousands of mutants were not restrained, they would start a massacre on the battlefield. Ouyang Shuo was able to come out because Bai Qi was the commander. The enemy must be a leader of the anti-Qin camp. They must have used some special tools to avoid the rules. Since they were ahead of Shanghai City's army, they must have set off early. Ouyang Shuo did not hesitate and said, "Chase after them and kill them." "Yes." Wang Feng bowed respectfully, then rode off. Ouyang Shuo turned to look at Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang and said, "You two stay here. I'll go meet them. Be careful." Ouyang Shuo nodded and patted Qing Dian. After a few months of nurturing, Qing Dian finally acknowledged Ouyang Shuo. This was also the first time Ouyang Shuo rode Qing Dian on the battlefield. Qing Dian was a warmonger and extremely intelligent. It knew what was about to happen, and could not help but let out a carefree neigh. Ouyang Shuo seemed to understand Qing Dian's meaning, and laughed heartily. "Haha," seeing Ouyang Shuo leave, Feng Qiuhuang muttered, "Humans are the same as horses, they are warmongers." When Bai Hua heard this, Mian grinned and nodded. When Ouyang Shuo rushed to the front of the army, the Featherwood Guards were already fighting with the enemy under Wang Feng's command. Seeing this, Ouyang Shuo took out the Sky Demon's spear and plunged into the battlefield. The current Ouyang Shuo was no longer the same as before. His combat strength was astonishing. Especially after the inner cannon of the Yellow Emperor broke through to the 8th level, it became even more ferocious. A group of Featherwood Guards automatically gathered around Ouyang Shuo to protect his safety. Wherever Ouyang Shuo's spear pointed, heads would fall. It had been a long time since the Sky Demon's spear had drunk blood. At this moment it was emitting an eerie glow. Ouyang Shuo's demon god bloodline was about to boil after being stimulated. The Azura's killing intent unconsciously spread out. Even the hearts of the surrounding Featherwood Guards trembled. When they looked at Ouyang Shuo, their gazes were filled with even more respect and admiration. The war horses neighed and the spears sang. Ouyang Shuo felt carefree and unconsciously let out a roar. Ha! Affected by this, the 3,000 Featherwood Guards became more and more courageous as they fought. The enemy retreated step by step and was about to be defeated. At this moment, the lord of the enemy recognized Ouyang Shuo. It couldn't be helped. The current Ouyang Shuo was too dazzling. He was like a god of death, killing everywhere on the battlefield. No one was a match for him. Marquis Lianzhou. The lord was startled and his heart trembled. Unfortunately, the arrow was knocked on the bow and had to be released. He decided to give it his all. Concentrate your firepower and kill Marquis Lianzhou. Yes. To be able to reach this step, This lord was extraordinary. The 3,000 soldiers under him weren't just some weaklings. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident that he could kill Liu Bang with only 3,000 soldiers. At this moment, a fierce general walked out from the lord's side. This valiant general was his greatest trump card. Who was this fierce general? It was the famous general of Chao Wei during the Three Kingdoms period, Su Huang. "Hey, give me your life!" Su Huang roared as he swung his axe and charged over. "Protect the marquis." Seeing this, Wang Feng also roared and was about to step forward to fight. Ouyang Shua's eyes narrowed. He felt the blood in his body boiling. He couldn't make a breakthrough in martial arts because he hadn't met a worthy opponent. No matter what Ouyang Shua had told Luo Shixin and the others to fight him, they still had some scruples in their hearts and didn't dare to use their full strength. Wasn't Su Huang the best touchstone for him to test his abilities? In his previous life, the Azura had never been a person who was afraid to fight. Ouyang Shua took a deep breath and said, "Wang Feng, step back and help me." Wang Feng opened his mouth and wanted to say something. As the Featherwood General, his duty was to protect the Marquis. If anything happened to the Marquis, not to mention how the Marquis would punish him. Even Du Ruhui, Bai Qi, Fan Zhongyan, and the other civil and military officials would skin him alive. Wang Feng's heart trembled when he thought of General Bai Qi's cold eyes. The problem was that he didn't dare to disobey the Marquis's order in the current situation. The Marquis's position in his heart was too high and unquestionable. Wang Feng had a bitter expression on his face. In the end, he didn't say anything and led the most elite soldiers to surround the Marquis. They had to ensure that they could reinforce the Marquis as soon as possible. The soldiers of the Yulin Royal Guards looked at the Marquis with admiration. Ouyang Shua slapped the azure lightning and steadily held the Sky Demon's spear, then charged at Su Huang. To be continued. Chapter 410. Clang. The demonic spear and the large axe collided, creating sparks. Ouyang Shua and Su Huang brushed past each other. Ouyang Shua felt his arm go numb. After the inner cannon of the Yellow Emperor reached the 8th layer, he already had the strength of 3 bulls. He didn't expect that he would still be on par with Su Huang. The battle prowess of a king-level general was truly not to be underestimated. The two of them turned their horses around and sprinted at the same time to continue the battle. During a battle of generals, if both sides were of equal strength, it would be a difficult and protracted battle. Unknowingly, the two of them had already fought for more than 30 rounds. At this moment, Su Huang's expression was solemn. He didn't expect a mutant to possess such combat strength. The more Ouyang Shua fought, the more excited he became. Even the cyan lightning beneath him was overflowing with battle intent. The soldiers on both sides had already stopped fighting and were standing on both sides, paying close attention to this battle of generals. Amidst the shouts, Su Huang brandished his ice-cold axe and hacked it down with a biting cold, killing intent. If this axe were to hit, it would be split into pieces. Ouyang Shua was awe-inspiring and fearless. He skillfully turned his body sideways on the horse's back, dodging Su Huang's axe. The giant axe brushed past his skin, causing a burst of cold air. Taking advantage of the gap when Su Huang was accumulating energy, Ouyang Shua held the demonic spear in his hand and swiftly thrust upwards. Such an unexpected move caused Su Huang's eyes to narrow. At this moment, he had yet to retract the axe in his hand, and it seemed that he would not be able to block this shocking spear. Fortunately, Su Huang was very experienced. He was able to dodge Ouyang Shua's spear by a hair's breadth. At the same time, the giant axe in his right hand had already blocked in front of him, causing Ouyang Shua's next spear strike to fail. Not only that, but Su Huang also managed to get up after blocking the attack. In this way, Ouyang Shua's exquisite move was cleverly neutralized by Su Huang. The two of them fought again, waiting for an opportunity to find each other's flaws. Ouyang Shua wasn't in a hurry, and the more he fought, the more intoxicated he became. A trace of anxiety flashed in Su Huang's eyes when he saw that he couldn't take down Ouyang Shuo. He knew that his lord was counting on him to kill the opponent and get out of this dangerous situation. Thinking of this, Su Huang's eyes flashed red. The red glow grew brighter and brighter. Eventually, his eyes turned completely blood-red, as if they were filled with blood. Su Huang had actually activated the blood-devouring talent and entered a berserk state. His combat strength had doubled in a short period of time. The giant axe in his hand also flashed with a red light. Su Huang was like a god of death as he rode on his warhorse. The lords watching from afar rejoiced, their eyes filled with anticipation. On the other hand, Wang Feng's heart skipped a beat. His heart was in his throat. Everyone knew that the peak of the general's battle was about to arrive. Bang! Su Huang brandished his giant axe and charged over once more. Stimulated by Su Huang's murderous aura, even the eyes of the warhorse beneath him flashed with a red light. It was strange and frightening. Ouyang Shuo's eyes focused, and he held his breath in concentration. His palms were actually sweating. This was the enemy's strongest attack. Clang! As the giant axe chopped down, Ouyang Shuo's arm trembled, and he almost lost his grip on the sky demon's spear. Ouyang Shuo couldn't help but be shocked. Su Huang didn't give Ouyang Shuo any time to catch his breath. It was as if his entire body was filled with inexhaustible strength. The giant axe in his hand became faster and faster, forming an axe shadow in the air. Ouyang Shuo did his best to stabilize his mind and bitterly resisted his opponent's attack. Facing such a ferocious attack, Ouyang Shuo couldn't find a chance to counterattack at all. One side weakened, the other side strengthened. Ouyang Shuo's body was pressed lower and lower. Ha! Su Huang didn't show mercy. He brandished the giant axe in his hand with great might. It was as if his body was equipped with a power source that continuously transmitted blood energy to him. As the battle progressed, the blood in Su Huang's body boiled more and more. The red light in his eyes seemed to want to devour someone, as if it was going to jump out of his eyes. Ouyang Shuo felt bitter in his heart. He could feel the huge force transmitted from the sky demon's spear getting stronger and stronger. The huge impact not only made his arm numb, but even his internal organs were shaken to the point of shifting. What was even more terrifying was that traces of red light passed through the giant axe and into the sky demon's spear. Then, through the sky demon's spear, they entered Ouyang Shuo's body. It was abnormally terrifying. This can't go on. Ouyang Shuo immediately circulated the yellow Thearka's cannon of internal medicine. Golden true origin flowed throughout his body, helping him stabilize his meridians, stabilizing his internal organs, and dispelling the numbness in his arm. As soon as the red light entered Ouyang Shuo's arm, it was completely devoured by the golden true origin. The yellow Thearka's cannon of internal medicine was indeed extraordinary. A trace of anxiety flashed across Su Huang's face. His blood-devouring was equivalent to burning his own potential. It couldn't be used for long, and there were serious repercussions. If he wasn't careful, he might even lose his lifespan. At this moment, his brain was gradually affected by the murderous aura, and he became a little delirious. His only belief was to kill the enemy in front of him. Seeing that his ferocious attacks had failed, Su Huang roared once more, and his body transformed once more. Streaks of red light flashed out from Su Huang's body. At this moment, Su Huang was like a man covered in blood. His whole body was covered in red light, which was very terrifying. Su Huang had actually activated the highest level of blood devouring. Even if he won this battle, he would lose a few years of his lifespan, and his blood essence would be greatly damaged. If he couldn't be properly nursed, he might even become a cripple. Su Huang was going all out. Ouyang Shuo's heart stirred when he saw this. In the battle, under the temptation of Su Huang's murderous aura, the murderous aura in Ouyang Shuo's body became stronger and stronger. Stimulated by the murderous aura, the fiend god bloodline in his body gradually awakened. At this moment, Ouyang Shuo could use the inner cannon of the Yellow Emperor to suppress the bloodline. But he didn't. Ouyang Shuo remained calm and let the fiend god bloodline awaken in his body. Roar! Ouyang Shuo seemed to be able to feel the bursts of carefree feeling from the bloodline in his body. As soon as the powerful bloodline was activated, it made Su Huang's heart tremble. Speaking of blood devouring, the fiend god was the ancestor in this aspect. How proud was the fiend god bloodline? How could it tolerate such a bloodline provoking it in front of it? A wave of murderous aura rushed toward Su Huang, causing his body to sway. Seeing this, Su Huang fiercely gritted his teeth and carried the big axe to attack again. Ouyang Shuo was awe-inspiring. On the heavenly demon spear, the red light and the black light intersected and clashed with the big axe. The battle between the two became more and more intense, and every move was fatal. On the battlefield, thousands of generals and soldiers held their breath, watching the battle without blinking. The longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it was for Su Huang. The blood devouring that he had activated was too intense. The blood in his body was no longer boiling, but burning. The meridians in his body felt as if they were being scorched by a raging fire, and waves of piercing pain came from them. A pained expression flashed across Su Huang's face. Seeing this, Ouyang Shuo was even more unhurried. He used defense instead of offense, preparing to drag it out like this. His fiend god bloodline could last for half an hour, which was more than enough to take down his opponent. Seeing that his enemy was so cunning, Su Huang became even more anxious. Unfortunately, he was already powerless. The bloodline in his body could no longer be improved. Not only that, but the physical strength stimulated by blood devouring was also gradually dissipating. The huge gap caused his body to sway again, and it looked like he was about to fall off his horse. Seeing that the time was ripe, Ouyang Shuo immediately switched from defense to offense. He brandished the heavenly demon spear tightly, and like raindrops, it stabbed towards Su Huang. Seeing this scene, the spectators on both sides already knew what was going to happen. Su Huang's defeat was right in front of them. The eyes of the Lord opposite him froze. He was unwilling. Thinking of this, the Lord secretly took out his bow and arrow, drew it, and shot an arrow. Poochie! A cold arrow flew from afar and directly hit Ouyang Shuo's back. Hiss! Ouyang Shuo sucked in a breath of cold air. Despicable! Seeing this, Wang Feng flew into a rage. Kill them! Wang Feng commanded the army to charge forward, and at the same time, he urged his horse to save the marquis. Ouyang Shuo was also furious, and the murderous intent in his eyes could no longer be concealed. He felt a strong poison flowing from the arrowhead into his body. A feeling of weakness came from within his body. Ouyang Shuo had no choice but to use the inner cannon of the Yellow Arch to resist the invasion of the poison. He was furious. An awe-inspiring murderous intent burst forth unrestrainedly, and his eyes instantly turned blood red, just like Su Huang's. The Azura from his previous life had appeared again. Ah! Ouyang Shuo resolutely resisted the invasion of the poison as he urged his horse to attack Su Huang. The heavenly demon's spear seemed to have sensed its master's murderous intent, and the black light became brighter and the red light became more bewitching. Even the green lightning under his crotch let out a series of whines. One man, one spear, and one horse perfectly merged into one. This was Ouyang Shuo's strongest attack, and it was infused with his will to kill. The heavenly demon's spear was like an antelope's horn, and before Su Huang could react, it directly pierced into his heart. Originally, Ouyang Shuo wanted to subdue Su Huang. Now, he only wanted to kill. Ugh! Su Huang lowered his head and looked at the spear in his chest, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. At this moment, the heavenly demon's spear was like a demon, madly devouring Su Huang's blood essence. Streams of blood essence flickered inside the heavenly demon's spear, forming blood veins. It was extremely strange. On the horse, Su Huang's face paled at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his face was devoid of blood. In less than 2 minutes, Su Huang's blood essence was completely devoured by the heavenly demon spear. In less than 2 minutes, Su Huang's blood essence was completely devoured by the heavenly demon spear. With the help of this essence, Ouyang Shua's golden true origin suppressed the poison in one go. The poison was also extraordinary, and it still tried to corrode Ouyang Shua's body. Ouyang Shua pulled out the heavenly demon spear, and Su Huang directly fell off the horse, dying on the spot. At this moment, he heard the sound of a system notification. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that has no clothes for killing King Stage General Su Huang. Your fame has spread far and wide. Reward: 20,000 reputation points, 2,000 merit points. Congratulations. System notification. Congratulations to player who says that has no clothes for killing King Stage General Su Huang. Reward: General Soul. A jade pendant appeared in Ouyang Shua's hand. Upon closer inspection, one could see a spirit slowly swimming in the jade pendant. It was very mysterious. Name: General Soul, Su Huang King Stage General. Type: Special Item, Effect. Placing the General Soul in the martial temple of the territory can resurrect a King Stage General without any damage. To be continued. Chapter 411. The appearance of the General Soul meant that the generals of the territory had an additional layer of security. In the later stages of the game, the Lord would rather resurrect an old general than accept a surrendered general. Whether it was loyalty or recognition of the territory, the old general was incomparable to the surrendered general. System notification. Congratulations to player not say you have no clothes. The Sky Demon Spear has swallowed enough blood essence and automatically evolved into a divine weapon. As for the specifics, please check it out yourself. Surprises really came one after another. Name: Sky Demon Spear, Divine Weapon, Hardness, 92, Sharpness, 80, Toughness, 85 Characteristics, Blood Devouring, has a higher chance of devouring the enemy's blood essence to promote weapon evolution. Ultimate Skill: Demon God Kill, releases a demon god's murderous aura, causing the opponent to panic, tremble, or even directly die from fright. The specific power depends on the opponent's courage. Cooldown time: 1 week. Evaluation: Forged from God's stone and nourished by the demon god's blood essence, it mutated and finally became a divine weapon. Bind by blood, cannot be traded, cannot be dropped, and can evolve again. The Sky Demon Spear finally evolved into a divine weapon, its various attributes greatly increased, and it also evolved the ultimate skill Demon God Kill. Looking at the introduction of Demon God Kill, it should be a spiritual attack skill. The courage of a general was generally not low. But according to the meaning of Demon God Kill, it was obvious that a general would be defeated in front of this ultimate skill. What shocked Ouyang Shua even more was that after evolving into a divine weapon, the Sky Demon Spear could evolve again. Above divine weapons, there was another type of teleportation, and that was the sacred weapon. In the 5 years of the game in his previous life, there had not been a single sacred weapon in the world. It was unknown whether this record would be broken by Ouyang Shua. Ouyang Shua's current armor, mount, and weapon could all be said to be gorgeous. Thinking about his previous life, his big brother resolutely fell out with him for a purple gold armor and abandoned many years of brotherhood. Ouyang Shua couldn't help but sigh. In this life, he didn't know if the two of them would meet again. In his previous life, Ouyang Shua's 4 brothers formed a mercenary group called Liangshan Mercenary Group. Among the 4, Ouyang Shua was ranked 3rd. Other than the big brother Little Song Jiang Song Pu, there was also the second brother Little Zhuge, Yi Zhanqing, and the 4th sister, Purple Rose Zhang Ziyue. Among the 4 siblings, Zhang Ziyue was the most favored. She had even secretly developed feelings for Ouyang Shua, but in the end, because Ouyang Shua didn't understand her feelings, it ended in vain. The base of the Liangshan mercenary corps was in Chuanzhou. In his previous life, he was quite famous in Chuanzhou. Ouyang Shuo did not ask the Chuanzhou intelligence station of the Black Snake Guards to investigate the Liangshan mercenary group. Everything was up to fate. If they really encountered each other, Ouyang Shuo wouldn't mind teaching his big brother a lesson. If he didn't run into it, then he could consider himself lucky. Although without that betrayal, Ouyang Shuo might not have been reborn. However, the feeling of being betrayed by the person he trusted the most was still unforgettable to Ouyang Shuo. After the battle ended, Ouyang Shuo's 8 Extremes Fist finally advanced to the 5th level, Mastery. Next, he could really try to combine the 8 Extremities Fist and the Yang family spear arts into one. When the Marquis was ambushed, Wang Feng was enraged. He led the Featherwood Guard and routed the enemy. Even so, he was not prepared to give up. He led his troops in pursuit, and he would not stop until he killed the Lord. When Wang Feng returned, Ouyang Shuo was already recuperating in a temporary tent. The aftereffects of the demonic god's bloodline and the corrosion of the venom caused Ouyang Shuo's face to look very pale. Wang Feng did not dare to disturb him, and could only anxiously wait outside the tent. At this moment, Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang rushed over from behind. The news of Ouyang Shuo's injury had already spread throughout the army. Feng Qiuhuang asked with concern, "What's wrong with Wui? Is he all right?" Although she usually liked to tease Ouyang Shuo, she was actually very concerned about him. Even Bai Hua looked at Feng Qiuhuang in astonishment. Wang Feng did not dare to be negligent, and obediently repeated the situation of the battle. This idiot, he only knows how to show off his bravery. Feng Qiuhuang paused for a moment, and then her expression froze. She took out a small porcelain bottle from her storage bag and said, "There's an antidote pill inside, quickly give it to Wui." Hearing this, Wang Feng's face lit up and he was about to take it. Feng Qiuhuang thought for a moment and suddenly kept the porcelain bottle, making Wang Feng confused. "Forget it, I'll personally give it to him." Saying this, Feng Qiuhuang directly opened the tent and walked in. Hearing this, Bai Hua also walked in. Wang Feng was instantly dumbfounded. He did not dare to stop the two of them. When Feng Qiuhuang walked into the tent, she saw Ouyang Shuo circulating his energy, and his face was pale. What was more worrying was that there was a green thread slowly crawling up his face. Needless to say, Ouyang Shuo's circulation was not ideal. When Feng Qiuhuang and Bai Hua arrived outside the tent, Ouyang Shuo had already sensed them. He sighed in his heart and slowly opened his eyes. Ouyang Shuo did not expect the poison on the arrow to be so overbearing that even the golden quintessential yuan could not suppress it. Under the suppression of the quintessential yuan, the thread of poison actually devoured the quintessential yuan to strengthen itself. Such a strange poison gave Ouyang Shuo a headache. In addition to the side effects of the demonic god's awakening, he had to circulate a large amount of quintessential yuan to calm and suppress the boiling demonic god's bloodline in his body. He did not expect the poison to be so powerful, and it took the opportunity to wreak havoc in his body. From the looks of it, Ouyang Shuo would not be able to suppress it. If not for his profound internal energy and strong physique, the poison would have taken effect on the spot. "Wui, how are you?" When the two girls saw the green thread on Ouyang Shuo's face, they were deeply worried, and their voices were trembling. Anyone would know that this was a sign that the poison was spreading throughout his body. "I was too careless." Ouyang Shuo smiled bitterly as he shook his head. He did not expect the other party to be so despicable. Not only did they shoot an arrow, they even coated the arrow with poison. "Who asked you to show off? You're a great lord, but instead of commanding properly, you actually imitated others to fight generals. I really can't stand you." Feng Qiuhuang mumbled as she took out an antidote. "This is an antidote, quickly consume it." Antidote. It can cure hundreds of poisons in the world, and it has a certain suppressive effect on rare poisons. Ouyang Shuo nodded his head as he took the antidote and swallowed it. Feng Qiuhuang then passed over a water pouch for Ouyang Shuo to drink. The clear water flowed down his throat, making Ouyang Shuo feel refreshed. "How is it?" Feng Qiuhuang asked with concern. Although she said it lightly, this antidote was not easy to obtain. When Ouyang Shuo heard this, he circulated his qi and looked at his meridians, feeling both happy and worried. He was happy because the antidote was indeed extraordinary. The poison was no longer spreading and was forced to a small corner. But the worry was that the poison was still not eliminated. Evidently, Ouyang Shuo was poisoned by some kind of rare poison. If only Bien Ke was here. Ouyang Shuo shook his head helplessly. "Thank you." Ouyang Shuo looked at Feng Qiuhuang and smiled. "The poison has been suppressed. There won't be any problems for the time being." "What about in the future?" "Don't worry. After the battle, I'll find the divine Dr. Bien Ke to treat me." "That's good." Bai Hua was a bystander throughout the entire process. The atmosphere in the tent suddenly became quiet. "Wang Feng." "Here." Wang Feng walked into the tent with a face full of shame and knelt on the ground. "I failed to protect you and caused you to be injured. Please punish me." Ouyang Shuo waved his hand and said, "Get up, it's not your fault. Please punish me, Marquis." Wang Feng knelt down and refused to get up. His temper was as stubborn as a donkey. Ouyang Shuo looked at this general of the imperial forest for a long time before saying, "Since that's the case, then take 20 strokes. After that, immediately reorganize the troops and continue on the road." "Yes." Wang Feng immediately left the tent. "Wui, why don't you rest for a while? Can your body take it?" Ouyang Shuo shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine. Time is of the essence. We can't waste too much time on the road. I suspect that there will be other lords rushing to Peng City." Feng Qiuhuang looked deeply at Ouyang Shuo and did not refute. Half an hour later, the army set off again. General of the imperial forest Wang Feng rode on a warhorse. Blood could be seen on his back. The military cudgel in the army was extraordinary. A single strike from the cudgel would split open the skin and flesh. 20 strokes were more than enough for Wang Feng. The Imperial Forest Guard did not dare to practice favoritism. However, Wang Feng's expression was one of pleasure. This iron-blooded man did not even make a sound after receiving 20 strokes. Obviously, if it wasn't for this beating, this general of the Imperial Forest would feel guilty for the rest of his life. After the army set off, there were still many twists and turns. Along the way, as Ouyang Shuo expected, they encountered 4 to 5 waves of enemy troops. Apart from the Lord's troops, there were also bandits and anti-Qin rebels. 3,000 Imperial Forest Guards, in addition to Bai Hua and Feng Qiuhuang's 1,000 elites, practically slaughtered their way to Peng City. The continuous slaughter allowed Ouyang Shuo and the other 2 to accumulate a considerable amount of contribution points. At this time, a great battle was also raging on the main battlefield of Giant Deer. Although Ouyang Shuo was unable to understand the details of the battlefield, he could make a few guesses from the constantly increasing contribution points and experience points. The powerful Imperial Guard Division cooperated with the Mountain Barbarian Heavy Infantry Brigade to harvest the enemy on the battlefield. They were truly invincible. The other mutant armies could only watch in the dust. It was precisely because of this that Ouyang Shuo did not dare to have the slightest delay on the road. The more intense the battle, the closer it was to the final battle. After 2 days of rest, the poison in Ouyang Shuo's body was already completely under control. The green threads on his face had also disappeared. With the aftereffects of the demonic god awakening gone, Ouyang Shuo could mobilize the golden true essence to suppress the poison with all his might. As time went on, Ouyang Shuo could even participate in the battle. Only when Ouyang Shuo's body improved did the solemn atmosphere of the entire army slightly ease up. On the 9th day of the campaign, the army finally arrived 30 li outside of Sioux County. At the same time, a mysterious army also rushed to the vicinity of Sioux County. An unexpected confrontation was waiting on the road ahead. To be continued. Chapter 412. P.S. I'm very sorry. I had too many things to do during the day, which delayed my progress. I'm still writing the second chapter. I didn't know that Ling Chen would be here in time. My apologies. Ouyang Shua's target was said to be Peng City, but it was actually Sioux County near Peng City. When Song Yi led the army to rescue Zhao, Liu Bang was stationed in Dang County with the title of Commander-in-Chief of the Western Expedition Army. Liu Bang dispatched his troops from Dang County to the north to gather the scattered soldiers of Chen Xing and Xiang Liang. As for Qingyang, they were sandwiched between the Qin army. Duke Pei's army attacked the Qin army and defeated Wang Li's army. The so-called Wang Li's army here was merely the outer troops of the 150,000 garrison troop. Subsequently, Duke Pei led his troops westward and met Peng Yu in Chang'e. The two of them joined forces to attack Chang'e, but before they could do so, Duke Pei returned to Li County. In Li County, he met Marquis Gang Wu and seized his army. Duke Pei's army increased by more than 4,000 men. Thus, what Ouyang Shua had to face was an army of over 6,000 soldiers. There weren't many soldiers in Sioux County, but they couldn't stop Liu Bang's many famous officials and generals. Xiao He, Chao Can, Zhou Bo, Fan Kuai, Lu Wan, Xia Hoing. The series of names was enough to dazzle anyone's eyes. Apart from that, there was also Liu Bang's luck. Throughout history, Liu Bang's path to power had been bumpy. He had fallen into dire straits several times, but he had miraculously survived them all. One had to admit that Liu Bang's luck was very strong. Thus, Ouyang Shua didn't dare be careless at all. When the army arrived outside Sioux County, Ouyang Shua gave the order to set up camp and sent out scouts to investigate the enemy's situation. Just after noon, Ouyang Shua did not receive any intelligence from Sioux County, but he received a piece of unexpected news. According to the scouts' report, to the east of Sioux County, in the forest 15 li away from them, there was also a mutant army hiding. This army had arrived a step earlier than Shanghai City's army, lying in ambush outside the city, eyeing Sioux County covetously. Ouyang Shua couldn't help but sigh with emotion. There were talented people among the feudal lords. One really couldn't look down on the people of this world. Ouyang Shua instructed solemnly, "Immediately investigate their origins." "Yes, sir." Ouyang Shua didn't dare act rashly without fully understanding this neighbor's background. Otherwise, he might end up helping someone else at any moment. In addition, Ouyang Shua summoned Wang Feng and ordered the entire army to hide. Within a 10-mile radius of the encampment, they were to be fully monitored. They could not allow the enemy to detect their presence. In the evening, more detailed information was reported. He didn't expect the other party to be an old friend. The other army was made up of Army Kill Ripper and his two allies, a total of 8,000 soldiers. It had to be said that military Kill Ripper was quite thoughtful this time. This time, he had left the Yan-Huang alliance to hunt in the wilderness by himself. He must have received guidance from an expert. Since that was the case, Ouyang Shua could be the Oriole. As night fell, the entire army was completely concealed. Because they were taking military ration pills, there was no need to light a fire to cook at the campsite. It was very well hidden. Only the scouts were paying close attention to the movements of the military headquarters. The next morning, they broke into the military camp. Army Kill Ripper was dressed neatly and walked out of the tent in high spirit. "Master!" A fierce general was standing guard outside the tent. When he saw Kill Ripper, he immediately saluted. This fierce general had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear. His face was full of sideburns and his eyes were like copper bells. He was the fierce General Hua Xiong from the Three Kingdoms period, and the only general under Kill Ripper's command. Hua Xiong was a general under Dong Zhuo at the end of the Eastern Han dynasty. In 191 AD, the Guandong warlords allied together to suppress Dong Zhuo. Sun Jian, who was the governor of Changsha, defeated Dong Zhuo's army, and Hua Xiong was killed by Sun Jian's army. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms changed this part of history, describing that Hua Xiong was killed by Guan Yu, Liu Bei's second brother. This part was known as killing Hua Xiong while drinking wine. Army Kill Ripper nodded and said with great ambition, "Let's move out, we must take Sioux County." "Yes, sir." 8,000 elite troops walked out of the forest they were hiding in, and charged towards Sioux County in a majestic manner. Liu Bang led his troops in Sioux County, paying close attention to the Battle of Giant Deer. Before the Battle of Giant Deer had a definite result, Liu Bang would not take the risk to advance west. Who would have thought that, instead of receiving a report, an army would come? According to the rules of the campaign, if a player led an army to attack an NPC of their own faction, not only would they not receive any contribution points, but they would also be punished. The most important rule was that they would not be able to receive any contribution points from this campaign. If they were unlucky, they might even be wanted by their own faction, like a rat on the street. Without a doubt, this was a red line. But sometimes, for the sake of huge benefits, some lords would still cross it. Army Kill Ripper was one of them. This time, he had given up a sizable amount of contribution points in order to subdue one or two generals. If he could capture all of Liu Bang's generals in one fell swoop, that would be for the best. For this, Army Kill Ripper had been planning for a long time. He had spent a lot of effort to find a buyer to purchase a precious Immunity Gold Medallion. Immunity Gold Medallion new. After using, the user can move freely in the campaign map, avoiding punishment and being wanted. It was because of this medallion that Army Kill Ripper was so fearless. At the same time, in order to take down Liu Bang's army, Army Kill Ripper had contacted two of his closest allies. In order to avoid being bullied, Army Kill Ripper naturally had to avoid the Yan-Huang alliance. To be honest, Army Kill Ripper's current situation in the Yan-Huang alliance was very awkward. Di Chun had made it clear that he was not on good terms with him, and Lord Chuanshan's attitude was ambiguous, making it difficult for him to act. Naturally, Army Kill Ripper harbored hatred in his heart. Especially for Di Chen's abandonment of him in the Lianzhou battle, Army Kill Ripper harbored even more hatred in his heart. His hatred towards Di Chen was even greater than Ouyang Shua's. Army Kill Ripper had never been a magnanimous person, otherwise he would not have been so hostile towards Ouyang Shua. Attacking Millet County was Army Kill Ripper's desperate gamble, and was also the key to breaking out of this situation. If this battle was successful, Army Kill Ripper would be able to turn things around. If he failed, not only would he lose a precious Immunity Gold Medallion, but he would also miss out on a chance to earn contribution points. If he really failed, Azura County would be completely pushed out of China's first territory. Therefore, to Army Kill Ripper, this battle could only be won, not lost. Other than the Pardon Medallion, Army Kill Ripper spared no expense and armed 8,000 elites to the teeth. Rations pills were only the standard. Better armor and weapons, better warhorses, and so on. 8,000 elites gathered the will of military Kill Ripper. Precisely because of this, they broke through the military headquarters and even arrived outside of Sioux County before Ouyang Shua. 2 days was only enough for Army Kill Ripper to gain a rough understanding of the situation in the city. However, Army Breaker couldn't wait any longer. He had the same concerns as Ouyang Shua. Army Kill Ripper was even more worried that the other lords would disrupt his plans. Sioux County had already been treated as a forbidden land by Sha Pejun. At 10 in the morning, the army arrived outside Sioux County. When Liu Bang got the news, he was discussing something with Xiao He and the county government. Liu Bang was surprised by the enemy's attack, and Su Xian was also caught off guard. According to Liu Bang's plan, Millet County was surrounded by volunteer armies, so it would be fine as long as he didn't go and bully them. Who would have thought that an army would attack Millet County? Is it Chang'e's army? Liu Bang raised his head and looked at Fan Kuai, who came to report to him. No, it's the Inhuman army. The Inhuman army? Liu Bang frowned and said, Why are they here? They don't come with good intentions. Xiao He also frowned. He had been feeling uneasy since this morning. Sure enough, something big had happened. Heh, do you really think I'm a pushover? Although Liu Bang was a ruffian, he was quick-witted, and the expression on his face was strange and unpredictable. The feeling of being looked down upon was not a good one. How many enemies are there? Fan Kuai pondered for a moment and said, About 7,000 or 8,000, no more than 9,000. Liu Bang snorted coldly and drew the crimson knight sword from his waist. The crimson blade emitted rays of red light as he said loudly, Fan Kuai, gather the troops and follow me out of the city to meet the enemy. Yes, sir. Fan Kuai was a militant. He immediately nodded and ran out of the county government. You can't, master. Seeing this, Xiao He stopped him. The enemy is attacking. We have the geographical advantage, so we should defend the city. Liu Bang shook his head and said, It's just 8,000 people. What's there to be afraid of? During this period of time, Liu Bang had been suppressing a bellyful of resentment. Xiang Yu had killed Song Yi on the battlefield of Giant Deer. Not only was he not punished, but he had also successfully seized the military power. At this moment, Xiang Yu was probably doing very well in Giant Deer, right? As for Liu Bang, he was holed up near Ping City and had made no achievements. They couldn't even conquer Chang'e. With only 6,000 soldiers, how could he compete with Xiang Yu? How could Liu Bang not be anxious when he compared the two? He had never thought that even so, there would still be people who wanted to take advantage of him. Liu Bang couldn't stand such contempt any longer. Seeing this, Xiao He heaved a long sigh and did not stop him. Xiao He could not be clearer about his master's thoughts. He knew that if he did not let his master vent her resentment, it would eventually become a hidden danger. Well, let my master fight to her heart's content. Most importantly, Xiao He did not think that the 8,000 enemy soldiers could really do anything to them. Although the quality of the soldiers in Duke Pei's army was not very good, they had many valiant generals. As the saying went, if the soldiers were strong, the generals would be strong together. A general's effect on an army's battle prowess was very obvious. Fan Kuai was the bravest general under Liu Bang's command. In his early years, he slaughtered dogs for a living and once rescued Liu Bang during the Hongmen banquet. In his early years, Xiahou Ying was in charge of raising horses and driving carriages in the Pei Mansion's stable. After Liu Bang's uprising, he followed Liu Bang to war and was also a general. In his early years, Chao Can was the jailer of Pei County. He was Xiao He's old friend and left the good name of Xiao Gui Chao Sui. Skilled in both literature and martial arts, he was the second prime minister of the Western Han and was also a general on the battlefield. Zhou Bo was born poor, but he had practiced martial arts since he was a child. He was adept at archery and riding horses. After settling in Pei County, he made a living by weaving reed foil and silkworm tools. Sometimes he would play drums for weddings and funerals to make a living. Like Chao Can, Zhou Bo was also skilled in both literature and martial art. In the end, he became the prime minister. Together with Lu Wan, it was a magnificent lineup. To be continued. Chapter 413. Outside Millet County. Military Kill Ripper led 8,000 elites and was about to attack the city gate. However, the gate suddenly opened and an army rushed out. It was none other than the 6,000 soldiers of Duke Pei's army. Just in time. Military Kill Ripper was a ruthless character. He immediately ordered the entire army to charge. Kill! The 8,000 elites were all elite cavalrymen. On the other hand, less than half of the Duke Pei's army was cavalry, and the rest were ordinary infantrymen. Therefore, military Kill Ripper was very confident. Opposite him, Liu Bang also drew his Scarlet Knight sword and shouted, "Kill! Kill!" The two armies started to charge at each other outside of Su County. They wanted to decide the outcome of the battle. Battle cries spread out in the early morning countryside, startling the birds. However, the people in the city were used to it. Living in troubled times, they were already numb to war. Hua Xiong was at the forefront, fighting Fan Kuai. Both of them were fierce generals, and this battle that transcended time and space was very interesting. Military Kill Ripper also took the lead and chose Chao Can as his opponent. The two lords generals took on Lu Wan and Xiahou Ying, one after another. Zhou Bo, on the other hand, guarded Liu Bang and slaughtered his enemies. As for Xiao He, he remained in the county government. The advantage of being a general was soon reflected on the battlefield. Apart from Hua Xiong and Fan Kuai, the two fierce generals, who were evenly matched, military Kill Ripper and the others were barely holding on and were on the verge of losing. Although military Kill Ripper was also a part-time general, he could not compare to Ouyang Shu. Chao Can might not be defeated immediately, but he was struggling to hold on. Xiahou Ying's opponent, in particular, was in grave danger. Xiahou Ying was a fierce general, while his opponent was just an ordinary general. How could he be a match for him? What was more frightening was that all the generals of Duke Pei's army had activated their special skills. With the help of their special skills, the soldiers of Duke Pei's army had their fighting strength increased by a large margin. Although military Kill Ripper had the advantage in numbers, he could not win because his generals were at a disadvantage. The battle seemed to be in a stalemate. Just as the two armies were fighting, an army quietly arrived outside the battlefield. The newcomer was none other than Ouyang Shuo. Before this, Ouyang Shuo was still fretting over how to take down Su County with only 4,000 soldiers. Unexpectedly, the situation of the battle took a sharp turn. He didn't expect Liu Bang to be so impatient. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have waited. In the blink of an eye, a new change occurred on the battlefield. Xiahou Ying thrust his spear forward and directly knocked his opponent off his horse. He broke through the military headquarters and killed his first general. When Lu Wan saw this, she did not want to be outdone. In less than 5 minutes, she also defeated her opponent. Just like that, Kill Ripper's morale plummeted. This was especially so for the 5,000-strong army of the two allies. Now that their commander had been killed, they were like a group of dragons without a leader. Seeing this, Army Kill Ripper did his best to deal with Chao Can while gesturing for the two lords to personally go into battle and command the army. The two of them respected military Kill Ripper, so they didn't dare to refuse. Only then did the army manage to stabilize. Even so, the morale of Duke Pei's army soared. This was especially true for Xiahou Ying, Zhou Bo, and the other generals. They couldn't find an opponent, so they went on a killing spree among the enemy. If it weren't for the fact that military Kill Ripper had brought along elites, they would have long since collapsed. Hua Xiong was also paying close attention to the battle. He had gradually gained the upper hand in his battle with Fan Kuai. He knew he had to do something at this moment. Opposite him, Fan Kuai's eyes were bloodshot. It was rare for him to meet an evenly matched opponent today, and he was howling in pain from the fight. Seeing this, Hua Xiong sneered and suddenly leaned to the side, dodging Fan Kuai's killing move. Almost at the same time, Hua Xiong swung his saber at Fan Kuai's neck before he could react. It was easy to imagine the consequences of such a huge saber. Fan Kuai's head flew high into the air and fell to the ground with a loud thud. Fan Kuai was dead. Fan Kuai! Liu Bang, who was in the distance, cried out in alarm when he saw Fan Kuai's head. The whole battlefield froze for a moment. The morale of both sides plummeted. It must be noted that the one who was killed in battle was a corps general of Duke Pei's army. Good! Military Kill Ripper, on the other hand, was delighted. Fan Kuai was indeed worthy of being his general. Kill! Military Kill Ripper avoided Chao Can and began to command the army to launch a surprise attack. He knew that there was no point in fighting generals at this moment. The only thing he could do was charge forward with his army. Kill! They broke into the army headquarters, carrying with them the morale of a great victory. The sound of galloping horses made the hearts of the soldiers of Duke Pei's army tremble. "My lord, let's retreat first," Chao Can suggested to Liu Bang. "No!" Liu Bang shook his head frantically and said sternly, "I want to avenge Fan Kuai." Fan Kuai was his most loyal and reliable brother. He had survived so many battles, but he never thought he would die here. The current Liu Bang was not as ruthless as he was in history after he became the emperor. Revenge. The eyes of Zhou Bo, Xiahou Ying, Lu Wan, and the others were also bloodshot. How could they bear the loss of one of their brothers who had fought together with them? Chao Can heaved a long sigh and could only follow the army to the other side. The battle had finally reached its climax. The dense killing intent drifted over the battlefield, appalling everyone. No matter how much pain Liu Bang was in, Duke Pei's army was losing ground again and again. The elite army that Military Kill Ripper had painstakingly built was indeed extraordinary. If nothing unexpected happened, he was going to win this battle. Thinking of this, Military Kill Ripper's lips curled into a smug smile. "Di Chun, Lord Chunshin, just you wait." Military Kill Ripper did not know that the entire battlefield was under Ouyang Shua's surveillance. Marquis. Wang Feng came to Ouyang Shua's side and asked if he could attack. Ouyang Shua focused on the battlefield and said, "Let's wait a little longer." There were no major casualties in the battle between the two armies. Ouyang Shua did not have the confidence to suppress two armies at the same time. Although he felt pity for Fan Kuai's death, he did not act rashly. Even so, he did not act rashly. His targets were Scarlet Knight Sword and Xiao He. As for the other generals, it did not matter much to the Mountain Sea territory. Ouyang Shua thought for a moment and then ordered, "Arrange for a battalion to go around to the city gate." He was worried that Duke Pei's army would escape back into the city. "Yes." Wang Feng nodded and went to make the arrangements. The battle in the distance was still going on, and it was getting more and more intense. Duke Pei's army was being beaten back. "Master, let's retreat." Chao Can came to Liu Bang's side again. Liu Bang heard this and did not refuse firmly. At the end of the day, compared to brotherhood, hegemony was more important. Liu Bang sighed and said in a fierce voice, "Retreat. Not good. They're trying to escape. Stop them." Military Kill Ripper would not let Duke Pei's army leave. He did not want to attack the city. Duke Pei's army was mainly made up of infantry, and the two sides were entangled during the battle. It was not easy to retreat. The more they retreated, the more likely they would be killed by Military Kill Ripper. For a time, Duke Pei's army suffered heavy losses. At the same time, Military Kill Ripper ordered a group of cavalry to go around and block the city gate. This time, Duke Pei's army really had nowhere to go. Damn it! Liu Bang was also furious. He personally led his troops to defeat the enemy at the city gate. Zhou Bo and Xiahou Ying flanked Liu Bang, one on the left and the other on the right, and immediately carved out a path of blood. Just as they were about to breathe a sigh of relief, they did not expect a fierce general to block the city gate. It was Hua Xiong. As the saying went, when enemies met, their eyes blazed with hatred. Without a word, Zhou Bo and the others charged forward. Good Hua Xiong, fighting 1 against 2, was not at a disadvantage. At that time, Zhou Bo and Xiahou Ying were not as fierce as they were in history. On the other hand, Hua Xiong was at his peak when he was summoned by Military Kill Ripper. When the two were compared, there was naturally a gap. Hua Xiong was undoubtedly the key to this battle. The battle at the city gate was getting more and more intense. Duke Pei's army had suffered heavy losses, and Military Kill Ripper did not feel good either. As soon as the battle began, the 8,000-strong army suffered a huge setback. Up until now, Duke Pei's army was like a cornered beast, and their lethality was astonishing. Of the 8,000-strong army, less than 5,000 were left. As for the 6,000-strong army, it was even worse. Less than 3,000 of them had been killed, and more than half of them had been killed. More importantly, the battle was still going on. If it were anyone else, they might have surrendered. But not Liu Bang. He would never surrender to a mutant. The two sides fought back and forth, and no one dared to stop. Right now, it was a contest of willpower. Whichever of the two armies could not collapse in the face of heavy casualties would win this battle. At the same time, Xiao He, who was in charge of the county government, heard the news and could no longer sit still. Xiao He gathered 500 soldiers from the county government office and rushed out of the city gate to rescue Liu Bang. Although 500 warriors was not a large number, they were still a force to be reckoned with. It seemed that Hua Xiong was about to lose the city gate. Zhou Bo and Xiahou Ying's pincer attack was no small matter. At the crucial moment, military Kill Ripper led his troops to reinforce Liu Bang. This battle was full of ups and downs. The small city gate became the focus of both sides' battle. Liu Bang no longer had any thoughts of revenge. All he wanted was to retreat into the city. Military Kill Ripper naturally did not want to fail at the last moment, so he tried his best to stop Liu Bang. Even if his army suffered heavy losses, military Kill Rippers would not waver. To him, even if he used his entire army to exchange for Xiao He and the others, it would still be worth it. Therefore, military Kill Ripper was not afraid of sacrifice. If things went on like this, military Kill Ripper's victory would be right in front of him. Military Kill Ripper was now worried that his soldiers would accidentally injure the generals in Liu Bang's army. Especially Xiao He, who was a precious treasure. The death of Fan Kuai had already made military Kill Ripper's heart ache. Unfortunately, military Kill Ripper's wish was destined to fail. In the battle, another general in Liu Bang's camp was killed. He was Liu Bang's other good brother, Liu Wan. Liu Bang's eyes turned bloodshot when he learned that Liu Wan was killed. Fan Kuai and Liu Wan were Liu Bang's two closest brothers. He did not expect that they would die at the same time today. Liu Bang could no longer remain calm after being provoked. The Crimson Knight sword in his hand shone with a bloodthirsty light. To be continued. Chapter 4:14. Liu Bang, the son of the Scarlet Tharch. In the game, Gaia had materialized the son of the Scarlet Tharch, and allowed Liu Bang to have the protection of a true dragon. Liu Bang roared and an illusory red dragon rose from his body, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Although the red dragon was only an illusion, it was extremely intimidating. This was the soul of a true dragon. As soon as the dragon's soul appeared, all the horses on the battlefield trembled and were about to kneel on the ground. Military Kill Ripper was shocked to see this. He had never thought that the inconspicuous Liu Bang would have such a powerful move. True dragon. Seeing the dragon's soul coiling around Liu Bang's body, Pei Gongjuan's eyes flashed with excitement. The son of the Scarlet Tharch, it really is the son of the Scarlet Tharch. The ancient people had a long history of reverence for dragons. Being possessed by a true dragon was the sign of the Son of Heaven. Even the soldiers in Kill Ripper's army were shocked and in awe. It took a lot of courage for them to fight against a true dragon. In an instant, the morale of both sides reversed. Liu Bang swung his sword and a head fell to the ground. At this time, he didn't even want to return to Sioux County. He only wanted to kill all the enemies in front of him. The ruffian Liu Bang had turned into a god of death. The son of the Scarlet Tharch who had killed the White Snake had reappeared in the world. He's just bluffing. Military Kill Ripper didn't want to wait any longer, so he purposely weakened the existence of the dragon's soul. Everyone, charge forward. Anyone who kills Liu Bang will be rewarded with 1,000 gold coins. With a great reward, there would always be brave men. 1,000 gold coins was a fortune that a normal soldier couldn't earn in their entire life. Which elite soldier wasn't hot-blooded and had a murderous aura around them? They weren't normal citizens who didn't dare to fight when they saw a true dragon. The cavalry patted their horses and charged at Pei Gongjuan's army again. Unfortunately, while the soldiers weren't afraid, the horses were scared and weren't as ferocious as before. The charge of Kill Ripper's army had little effect. The two armies clashed again, but they were evenly matched. Liu Bang had single-handedly saved Duke Pei's army from destruction. He was worthy of being called a man of great fortune. On the battlefield, Liu Bang was like a god who killed anyone who stood in his way. Even Hua Xiong was a bit fearful. The deafening battle cries lasted for more than an hour. At this point in the war, both sides were already in a killing frenzy. Even Chao Can, who had always been calm, felt his blood boiling under the stimulation of Liu Bang's true dragon qi. Only one person remained calm on the battlefield. He was Xiao He. Xiao He frowned as he observed the situation on the battlefield. Although Pei Gong's army was not at a disadvantage, but at this rate, sooner or later they would be crippled by the enemy. Even if he won, so what? After this battle, would the Pei Gong army still have the capital to contend for hegemony? Just the volunteer army of Chang'e was enough to wipe them out, not to mention anything else. Impulsive, Xiao He let out a long sigh. He had never supported the idea of going out of the city to fight. As expected, it led to the bitter consequences. He had to stop his lord. They could not continue fighting. The smartest thing to do now was to take the chance to retreat to Sioux County and recuperate. Otherwise, everything would be over. Master! Xiao He rode to Liu Bang's side. Liu Bang turned around and looked at Xiao He. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was not a trace of emotion in them. Ice cold. Xiao He's heart trembled when he saw that, and he secretly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Master, please retreat and leave some roots for Pei Gong's army. Hearing that, a trace of anger flashed in Liu Bang's eyes. Xiao He's heart trembled again. At that moment, he almost thought that his lord was going to draw her sword on him. Humph! Fortunately, Liu Bang seemed to still have a trace of rationality. He did not even turn his head back, waving the Crimson Knight sword, chopping off another head. Liu Bang answered Xiao He with his actions. Xiao He let out a long sigh. Was the great cause of hegemony going to end here? No, he was not willing to accept it. He thought about how many disasters they had encountered since the uprising in Pei County to get to where they were today. The hardships they had gone through were not worth mentioning. Among the team, Xiao He was the most tired. Liu Bang was the lord and the spiritual leader. Zhou Bo and the others were only generals responsible for killing the enemy. What about Xiao He? He was the most important official under Liu Bang's command. He was both a strategist, a diplomat, and a grain officer. All the government affairs and logistics were on Xiao He's shoulders. Even so, Xiao He didn't complain at all. He gladly endured the hardship, not for anything else, but because he was unwavering in the great cause of hegemony and had full confidence in Liu Bang. Master! Xiao He let out a long cry, his voice mournful. However, Liu Bang turned a deaf ear to him. As he killed, Liu Bang's blood and qi became more and more vigorous, and the illusory red dragon gradually became more solid. It was really shocking. The morale of the military headquarters plummeted because of Liu Bang alone. No matter how generous the reward was, one had to be alive to enjoy it. For a moment, no one dared to approach Liu Bang, forming a vacuum. Even Pei Gong's army didn't dare to approach their lord. Xiao He's action suddenly made Chao Can and the other generals wake up. Chao Can was suddenly startled. He looked up at the battlefield and couldn't help but be shocked. Sir! Chao Can and the other generals came to Xiao He's side. Seeing this, Xiao He said solemnly, "We must bring the lord back to Sioux County." "Yes, sir." Seeing this, the three generals knew that it was a moment of life and death, and there was no time to delay. However, as the blood and qi attacked, Liu Bang became more and more unconscious, and there was only killing in his eyes. Zhou Bo and the other generals were just about to approach when they were attacked by Liu Bang. "Master!" Zhou Bo cried out, hoping to wake Liu Bang up. Unfortunately, it was of no use. At this time, Liu Bang had not become a great person, and the Emperor's aura on him was too weak to control the true dragon soul. The consequence of forcibly activating the true dragon possession was the backlash of the true dragon. The Emperor of a generation was destined to fall. Liu Bang had already become a demon. The red dragon on his body became more and more demonic, and a hint of evil flashed in the dragon's eyes. Seeing this, Pei Gong's army was shocked. Was this still the son of the Red Dharch? Or a true dragon? It was like an evil dragon. "Liu Bang has become a demon. Soldiers, follow me to kill the demon." Military Killer was really good at seizing the opportunity. Kill the demon. When a person's fear of something reached a peak, they would not be so afraid. That was the state of the soldiers of the military headquarters. Protect the Lord. Although Xiao He was on the verge of despair, he didn't give up completely. The final battle of the war was about to begin. The focus of the fierce battle was Liu Bang, whose eyes were red and emotionless. This battle had been going on from morning to noon, and it was time to have an end. Suddenly, the rumbling of horse hooves came from outside the battlefield. It was so sudden. Both sides were shocked, thinking that it was the other side's reinforcements. There was no doubt that the side with reinforcements at this time would obtain the final victory. Xiao He looked up and saw that it was the mutant army, and his heart was filled with despair. Because whether it was the enemy's reinforcements or not, the mutant army would not have any good intentions towards Pei Gong's army. Why was Xiao He so sure that it was the mutant army that was coming? It was actually very simple to distinguish. Whether it was the soldiers of the military headquarters or the arriving reinforcements, the armor of the soldiers did not belong to this era. Only an inhuman army would have such advanced equipment. Military Killer looked up, and his face was also filled with despair. Amidst the rumbling of horse hooves, 3 lords' flags fluttered in the wind. The flag in the center was especially dazzling, and there weren't many players in the China server who didn't recognize it. It was the lord's flag of the famous Shanghai city. Hao said, "No clothes." Military Killer gritted his teeth. The anger and frustration in his heart could no longer be described with words. Victory was in sight, but the peaches were stolen. What kind of feeling was this? The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Ouyang Shua didn't care about the emotions of both sides. The 4,000 soldiers charged into the battlefield in a uniform formation. Whether it was the military headquarters or Pei Gong's army, they were all within the range of the army's massacre. That's right, it was a massacre. After a day of fierce fighting, the soldiers of both sides were extremely exhausted. 8,000 soldiers of the military headquarters were left with less than 4,000 people. Pei Gong's army had less than 2,000 people left. Such two weary troops simply didn't have the slightest strength to resist when faced with the Featherwood Guard, who had conserved their strength and built up their strength. Join forces to resist Shanghai City's army? Don't be ridiculous, the grudges between both sides were too deep, and they simply couldn't walk together. Most importantly, Ouyang Shua didn't give them time to think. The 4,000 soldiers rushed out of the forest several kilometers away in less than 20 minutes. Outside Millet County, a monstrous massacre had completely sunk into the sky. The only strange thing was that Liu Bang, who was already possessed, was still wielding his sword and killing. How can you say no clothes? Military Killer's eyes turned cold, and he said hatefully, "If I can't have it, don't even think about having it. You want to pluck the peaches? Dream on." His defeat was already set in stone. Since that was the case, then everyone would fail together. Military Killer smiled coldly, and ordered the entire army to surround and kill Xiao He. Why Xiao He? Because Xiao He was a civil official, and basically didn't have much fighting strength. As for generals like Zhou Bo and Xiaohoang, military killer didn't have the confidence to take them down. More importantly, military killer wasn't stupid. He knew that Xiao He was the most coveted by the lord of Pei Gong's army. Pei Gong's army obviously didn't expect that at this time, the enemy would still be so crazy. They didn't care about the new army, and instead attacked them. Xiao He's guards were dying at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked like Xiao He was about to die on the spot. "Protect Mr. Xiao Qin reacted, and he urged his horse to rush over to save him. Xiao He himself, however, had an indifferent expression. His path to supremacy had already been severed, and he already had the determination to die. His master had fallen into a demonic state, and he, Xiao He, was powerless. Since that was the case, he would just let him go with his master. Xiao He smiled bitterly, and he ignored military killer who was charging at him, not even bothering to dodge. "Heh!" Military killer smiled coldly, and his expression was one of madness. "Go to hell." Military killer waved his long spear and stabbed it toward Xiao He. To be able to personally kill a god-level civil official, military killer, could be considered to be the first in history. This time, kill-defeating army's loss was worth it. Too worth it. How can you say no, close? Heh, go and cry. To be continued. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.